Hello, and welcome to the Humanity, where still we do the things with the stuff for the people. My name's Tommy. If you're wondering where Matt is, he will be joining us shortly. Yeah, just running a little behind. Had some things to attend to. Yeah, I'll let him explain when he pops on if he wants. I really don't know. Oh well, he's fine. Like I assume he's not dying. But yeah. But anyway, welcome to the show tonight. Like I said, once Matt joins us, this will be our final show together of the year. Yeah, sorry, of the year. I want to make sure I put that on the end of that sentence before all you got too concerned. But yeah, because with next week being Christmas and on Wednesday, and the week after that it's New Year's Day on Wednesday, I figured, yeah, let's take a break. I will actually still be on. At least I plan to still be on next week on Christmas Day, which man, that's a week from today. Damn. I still have some shopping to do. Yeah. But anyway, for various reasons, I'm just going to be by myself on Christmas this year by choice. Partially, anyway. Yeah. Long story short, yeah, the kids are going to be with their mom for Christmas this year, at least on Christmas, and so I just figured since not probably not going to go up to visit my family until the kids are with me anyway later in the week. So just figure do what I've never done before, and that's just spend Christmas alone. Which, as an introvert, people may know me as actually kind of excited about it. Just have a holiday to myself, do stuff, and of course, in the evening, figured since I'm available, might as well just hop on here. Probably just do some more like apologist reactions, like on YouTube or whatever. If that sounds appealing to any of you, then come hang out with me. Other than that, probably just take a New Year's Day off, and then we'll be back uh, on the, I don't know, will that be the 8th of January? I don't know. So, yeah. But speaking of Christmas, I'll go ahead get into what I'm drinking tonight. It's a Cincinnati local from Taft's Brewery here in town called Santa's Bribe. That's what they call the Christmas Cookie Ale. Um, yeah, it's basically a winter warmer with cinnamon, ginger, and vanilla, which are three of my favorite flavors. So yeah, hard to tell in my mug of choice for the evening, but very dark. Like basically just looks like a stout. But mm, mm-hmm. Yes, haven't had one of those since last year, and it's as good as I remember. Yeah, it's one of my favorite of the like spiced like winter warmer like Christmassy beers, especially here in town. I mean, Great Lakes Christmas Ale obviously is. I mean, it's the shit, man. But yeah, so Slanjava or whatever. Though I will say, for a winter warmer, it's only 6.2%. Usually they're a bit stronger or warmer than that. Yeah, but also, speaking of this being our final, like, full, like, the two of us, assuming Matt's still coming. He hasn't told me otherwise. Um, yeah, I expect him to be on here shortly. But yeah, our last, like, full, like, together episode of the year. And I did not do this on purpose, but apparently wore a pretty fitting T-shirt. You can't read that. It says "Humanity's Last Breath." One of my favorite bands. It's like, oh, it's Humanity's last full show of the year. It's like kind of like Last Breath, but I swear we're not dying. At least that I'm aware of. Um, but yeah, so I figured for tonight, take on the topic of truth, I guess, and truth matters, especially when it comes to your beliefs, because we figure this is, the question of is what you believe true and does it matter if it's true? That's really kind of one of the, like say, if we have any sort of like guiding principles or things for like why we do what we do here on the show. That's definitely a big part of it. Yeah, it's a big reason why we talk about the things we do. yeah, and ask the questions that we do and all that. So yeah, it's something I remember Matt asking like back in the old like three beer gospel podcast days, and we were both still like in our deconstruction, kind of still wrestling with faith, but then kind of coming out of it. The question he liked to ask people, I mean, I do too, but I think he just said it so well. Is like, if what you believed was wrong, would you want to know? And I think that's, yeah, it's a question I think it's important for everyone to ask themselves, whether it's, you're actively deconstructing or deconverting, you still consider yourself devout, or even in things other than like matters of faith. I think it's also important. Matters of like politics, general life philosophy, parenting styles. Yeah, if what you're thinking, the way you're doing things, if it's wrong or harmful or whatever term you want to, negative term you want to put on it, then yeah, would you want to know? Because it seems like, um, at least in my experience, when it comes to people who are just like very devout when it comes to their faith, it's like some people might actually say it, but it seems like the attitude is it's like they don't, even if they were wrong, like they wouldn't want to know, just because like holding on to this faith to them is just so, or at least they view it as like so critically important that they just couldn't do without it. So I know at least like for me and Matt, like that wasn't really a tenable position. It's like the more we were examining these things and figuring out either the things that we believed were wrong, or at least looked like they were wrong, or at very least we didn't really have a good reason to think it was true. Just there just didn't seem like there was a point in holding on to it. So yeah, um, yeah. Speaking of Matt, hope he jumps on soon because I was not prepared to go solo. Seeing how long. Let's see. I'm just going to text him real quick just to see if he has any idea. But yeah, maybe I should have just waited. Um, oh yeah, let's see. Any news? Anything going on? Um, yeah, I mean, as far as current events, that's also usually more Matt's area. I don't really keep up with or follow too much what's going on in the news. So if there's anything interesting any of you fine folks in the audience, feel free to leave a comment, whether it's like live or later. We always like to hear what you people are uh, keeping up with and all that. So yeah, yeah. Sorry, my mind's just trailing off. Yeah. Hmm. Man. So hmm. There's definitely a lot to this topic I want to talk about, but I obviously wanted to have Matt here to talk about with it. To talk with about it. Yeah, that's the order those words go in. Um, yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Still no response from Matt. So sorry, everyone. Thanks for being patient. Man. So yeah, truth. Does it matter? Why does it matter? But speaking of kind of like guiding principles, philosophies, so as I've talked about before, my deconstruction journey, as I was kind of on my way out of faith, the big question I just kept asking people whenever they said something about God or their faith or what they thought about spirituality, the nature of the world, and reality, and all that. I would just keep asking people, okay, this is what you think. Okay, how do you know? How do you know that's actually true? But the answer I kept getting, at least from the crowd I was in at the time, the more progressive Christian, obviously deconstructing crowd. I mean, because sure, like you're more like fundamentalist, presuppositionalist. Like, yeah, so how do you know it's true? It's like, well, the Bible says so. Or you get in like more evangelical crowds, it's like, well, it's just so wonderful, and or they might talk about experiences they've had. Um, yeah, but I'd say, okay, well, these experiences, like, how do you know that this experience is what you are claiming it is? No, it's not just something like you were told to believe that this was God or something supernatural. But yeah, so yeah, I just got to the point where I guess to me, like, it matters. Like, especially if it's to the level of I'm going to base my life on this idea or these ideas. I kind of want to know if they're true and if it's real. So, oh, looks like we have him, Matt, but he's not showing up on the screen. So
Yeah, I don't know what that's about.
far.
I hit the switch, but I didn't appear.
Yeah, I think I might have hit like maximize on my screen instead of
Oh, okay.
regular view thing. So yeah, sorry about that. How long were you there?
A few seconds.
Okay, so all right, so you didn't hear me floundering too much. That's good. I was doing great. Uh, yeah. So how are you?
A little rumblies and the tumblies.
Mm-hmm.
Little pain in places I'd rather it not be, but that's.
Mm-hmm.
I got some free beer earlier, so that worked.
No.
I was out at Nine Giant, and I got a half pour for my second beer, and they had to like go change the tank or something, change the keg, and so I guess somebody else got it started, and then the manager, he's like, "Happy birthday!" He accidentally did a whole pour.
Nice.
Which is also kind of maybe illegal, maybe because you can't serve beer if the taxman doesn't get his taxes.
Well, maybe they just considered the rest of it like you had a couple free samples that all the bars do. So just half a beer's worth of a free sample. Yeah, that's a
I'm
thing.
on bourbon now.
Ooh,
one of my cheapos, Evan Williams.
Nice.
I prefer Ezra Brooks, but they don't have it. They only have the 99 proof, which I don't think is as good.
Interesting.
They stopped carrying the regular because everybody was buying the 99 proof, because for like a higher proof bourbon, it's not very expensive.
Yeah, I guess that is a little higher. Yeah. 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 So speaking of which, I already told everyone else who's not watching what I'm drinking. Taft's Santa's Bribe.
Oh, what is that? A winter warmer?
Yeah, they call it their Christmas cookie ale. It's got cinnamon, ginger, and vanilla, which is very tasty. Kind of tastes cookie like. I dig it. Also pointing out how this probably being our last like joint episode of the year, probably because I'm assuming you're not going to want to do an episode on Christmas or New Year's Day, but that was just an assumption. Yeah, like I said, I'll still be here on Christmas Day because I'm spending the holiday by myself, which I'm looking forward to.
Maybe New Year's Day.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see. I might not be available on New Year's Day, so I guess if you want to do a thing, that could be a thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
I also pointed out how I didn't do this on purpose, but this might be like our last full the humanity episode. I wore like humanity's last breath t-shirt today. So
It's a band.
yes.
That's what I thought.
Mhm.
I think I've heard them.
I know I've played at least one of their songs for you. Yeah. They're like really heavy, like in like the kind of genty, like really weird area. And like you listen to them, it's like, oh, these people have heard of Meshuggah, but they kind of a little more towards like, but then add a little more like deathcore ish type elements into it as well,
Hmm.
which is really cool. Like, because like the singer has like your more typical like death metal-y deathcore is like lower like growl, and then like switch like higher pitched screams and kind of going back and forth between those. Where like Meshuggah, like their vocalist, like he just has like one setting,
Yeah.
which and it works, but yeah. So, so yeah, I was just telling the folks about topic for the evening being something that I think was kind of appropriate to do for our last like full episode of the year. It's kind of like questions that I think at least are kind of in a lot of ways maybe like the basis for like why we even do this. This question of like because I talk about the question that you like to ask, which is like if your beliefs were wrong, would you want to know? And but then
Mhm.
also like well like does it even matter if they're wrong or right or if they're true or not? So yeah. I
It
think
came
one
up.
thing I
The
was
topic came up briefly when I was talking to that person earlier.
what person?
Um, Somebody that I used to. Uh, he was in a group I led um, twice about spiritual warfare.
Oh, okay. Was
Like,
that were you meeting with them at Nine Giant? Was that what that
yeah,
was?
yeah,
Oh, okay, cool.
yeah. Haven't talked to them in like years. In at
Hmm.
least 2 years.
Oh, well, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, one thing I was about to say before you so rudely interrupted by actually
Well,
summing up.
I'm sorry.
I'm kidding. There's like a couple like quotes that I've heard that I really really like that I think kind of go along with like my search for like okay it actually does matter to me if what I believe is true because I really like what Matt Dillahunty has to say is like I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. And I like how he says like the reason he adds the as few false things. He's like because like if my only goal was just believe as many true things as possible, then I would just believe everything, and then just kind of by default I'd believe a bunch of true things. But he says, but I don't want to believe false things, so gonna have to balance it out with that as well. Healthy dose of skepticism with things. Then another quote by Sam Harris. I don't remember the exact, but it's something along the lines of like, "I don't know of any civilization in all of human history that suffered because they demanded too much evidence in support of their core beliefs." So that's also been kind of a big, I guess, if you want to say like life philosophy statement, whatever.
Well,
Mine.
maybe there was, and they got all dead.
That's true. Maybe that's why we don't know about them.
Yeah,
They did the big suffer,
yeah.
and but
The big dead.
that is the big suffer. Um, so yeah, so I've been blabbing on about that for a while. So I guess
So
any thoughts off the top of your head?
I I think it matters. Well, one, what you mean by true,
Mm.
um, like do you mean factual or do you mean like provides meaning or
Yeah.
shoot, there was another word. Um, so I think the problem with thinking something is factual is when you think of belief is true in the factual way is when it starts to interfere with like you have to disbelieve things we've proven um, to at least know it's more true than what the Bible says about that same thing. Um, and if it's about like how the world was created or evolution or whatever, like less impactful, except there's a lot of mental health and a lot of stuff that's considered sinful that's really just left over from
Mm.
surviving this long through evolution.
Yeah.
um, I think it gets real dangerous when you disregard factual things from science when around mental health and other health, but mental health specifically seems to be a big one in America. um,
Mm-hmm.
it's the demons, or autism is a demon named autism.
Yeah, or it's something you can just pray away, whether you consider it a demon or not. Yeah.
There's that one video where it looks like the kid had his autism prayed away, but also autistic kids that can interact socially on some level are also really good at masking, and they know how.
Mm-hmm.
They've learned how to give you what you expect in an interaction. And so
Mm-hmm.
that one that I'm thinking of where the kid does his thing, I could tell by watching him that like he's, you could say faking it, but it's more like he doesn't know what's going on. He just knows what makes the uncomfortable go away.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've seen that video too. Yeah, that was disturbing, really. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But but yeah, but what you were saying about, okay, what do you mean by true? Like, you mean like factually true, or I don't know what you said, like true, like principle, or what
Well, there's
was
like
the
different
purpose?
kinds of truth. There's like factual truth, and then there's something that like gives definition to your life. And
Okay,
so
yeah, meaning and stuff. Yeah,
like you
yeah.
can watch a movie and you're like, that felt real and true. Like it just,
Mm.
you know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah, so I guess what I would say is it's like they're both like very like valid ways of talking about truth, but I guess the way I would approach it is if you're talking about like the um, what do we call it, like whatever kind of like lesson or whatever. I don't know. I keep blanking on like literally the words and phrase that you like just said because I get for some reason. So not the factually true, the other one. Um,
Like yeah, meaning and direction and
meaning that was the word I was looking
guidance.
for. Yeah. Hmm.
Like it can
Yeah.
provide
So,
guidance that like really helps you.
yeah. But I guess for me, the important thing is if that's the truth you're talking about, make sure you make that distinction because people like
Yeah.
bringing it back to talking about the Bible, like people will say, well, there is truth in the Bible, but people take that well, but then they also think it has to mean that it's okay, this story is not only true in the lesson that it's teaching, but it's also factually true and the events that it's describing is like historically like this actually happened. So I think as long as you're able to still make that distinction and still say, okay, just because the lesson I'm learning from it is true doesn't mean what the things that the story is describing like actually literally happened. Because like something like you said, sometimes it matters. Like when it comes to like stories like that, sometimes it doesn't. Um,
But
like you
pastors
mentioned,
kind of make their living off of conflating the two.
yeah, a lot of times. Mhm. What
I
do you mean by that?
true factually and like the true meaning and guidance. Like you feel more like a deeper connection with life or the universe. Um, like
Mhm.
that, I think that connection is real, but I don't think it's proof that the belief is factual. Uh,
Mhm.
it all it is proof that that belief does something that allows you to be a more connected being. Like,
Mhm.
but like relationships can do that, and knowing more about the universe can do that. Knowing more about yourself can do
Yeah.
that. Like it's,
Mhm.
I think it's different. It's really maybe even impossible to say that um, that deeper connection only came through the religion, or is it because the religion
Mm.
facilitated doing the other things?
Right, right. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, yeah, 'cause it's a lot of times like religion will talk about this like in terms of I'm thinking specifically Christianity, specifically Christian apologists. Um, will say things like, "Well, you don't really have a basis for morality, like without Christianity, or at least like believing in God." Because like
So when you
this,
say maybe you don't,
yeah, right. It's like because I
also
think some,
stranger danger, I don't feel safe.
yeah, right, right. Yeah, those are the people you're like, okay, please keep believing. Like I'm not going to try to talk you out of it. Um, if you're telling me you're not going to be a moral person without it, which I even the people who say that, like I don't really believe them necessarily.
Do you think they believe it?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure some of them do, but yeah,
Well, statistically, some of them are serial killers.
that is true. So, but the way I like the way Penn Jillette put it when he said, like, when people say, "Oh, without God or religion or whatever," it's like you atheists, well, I guess, sorry, my brain is like correcting myself and realizing, oh, I'm not saying any of this out loud, so you're not following me at all. Sorry. Anyway, so one was saying like things like people asking like, well, without any kind of like religious sense of morality, like what's to keep you atheists from just like murdering and raping and stealing whatever like all you want? And he's like, nothing. Like I do murder and all those things all I want, and that amount is zero because I he's like because of things like empathy, you know. Yeah, so I think the people who say that we only have these things because of religion, because they will look at the lessons that were like religion, again, in my experience, like people typically talk about Christianity and like from the Bible or whatever, say, well, that's where we get these morals from. But I think that's kind of getting it backwards. 'Cause to me, it more seems like that whatever morality is in the Bible, and it's kind of debatable how much actual morality is really in there, or what kind of good morality you can really get from it. Um,
But I'm
so,
back.
aha. Um, but I think it's more like these were things that were already part of humanity, if you will. Um, and then they just use their religion or their religious writings or whatever kind of as a framework to like actually like codify it and like put a story to it, basically.
Yeah.
So saying that like our morality comes from Christianity or whatever religion, to me, like the analogy I like to use is um, sports and like teamwork and like competitiveness and stuff like that. Like, because people could say, like, point to say, like, in your local town, you got a lot of good like local like school sports, athletics and stuff, and say, oh, look in our community, like all these kids like having this good sense of like teamwork and camaraderie and competitiveness and learning how to work together. It's like they're getting that from sports. Like this sports is clearly where all these things came from. But it's like, no, like it's the reason humans like sports and put those things into sports is because those are things that we already value. And then we just give them the structure of sports. Now, do those things help with like those things? Like, sure, because like I said, it does give a structure to it, but it's also like saying, well, like if your kid's getting it from like playing basketball, it's like, okay, we only get this from basketball. You're not going to get it from like playing baseball or soccer, God forbid. Um, but it's like, no, it can take like any of these forms, and you can even build those things without sports in certain ways. There's like other kinds of teams and groups and that like people can be a part of, like to learn how to work together. So, yeah, I just think it's backwards.
So I was talking to that guy earlier today,
Hmm.
Justin. He he said he was talking about how like he grew up. He grew up in kind of like a strict Protestant, and uh, there was like a big emphasis on like it's true, it's all true, and Bible focus and all that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then he realized that like it really matters like what you mean by true and what parts, because there are parts that will hurt you if you think they're like
Right.
completely true. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, it teaches about slavery, even tells you how to do it, and
Right.
and it's like, well, clearly we don't think that's a good idea anymore. And I was like, well, it depends who you are. So we're gonna find out who those people are next year, because they're just gonna get louder.
Yep. Yep.
There's even that, was it the black governor of North Carolina, the black Nazi?
I've
Did
heard
you
of
hear
this
about
guy.
that
I
guy?
don't remember. I remember that such a person exists, but I don't remember like what state or what their office was or any details about him.
Well, he was running
I think,
in
I think
like
it's.
Trump.
I think it was almost like as soon as my brain heard just the concept, I'm like, I'm done with this idea already.
Yeah,
Sorry, go on. Go on though. Yeah.
he was like he wanted slavery to come back. He's like, I'd own a few slaves, and and then so I heard this like black stand-up comedian. No, she a writer on a CNN news game show. It's very cool. It's called "Have I Got News for You?" It's a spinoff of a British one. But she's like, you the slave. It's like, if there's slavery, you're the slave. Like, I don't think you understand how that worked.
Yeah. For real.
He's like, I'd be one of the good black people. He's like, I'd be one of the ones that's allowed to own slaves. It's like, oh, why?
Yeah. Cause I mean,
How? It's like, how do you make that true
uh, uh,
in your own head?
yeah.
Is it like
I,
the slave owners were the good conservatives? I I don't,
I
and all
mean,
the slaves were liberals. What's going on?
do you know if this guy was actually like Christian or
Claimed to
religious or?
be. He said he was.
Yeah, which I mean, and this is a whole other topic. I think if we'd ever
I really doubt
talk
it.
more,
But
but yeah, this is like another topic. Like I think if we ever talk, I'm sure we will talk more about this idea of morality, like specifically what morality can we actually get from the Bible, if any. It's like
it ain't
I
great.
mean, if you take the Bible seriously, or I guess
Like which parts?
like what does that even mean? If you're like the fundamentalist Christians who try to take it all literally and they say like no, like all our morality has to come from the Bible, like we can only think it's wrong if the Bible says it's wrong, if the Bible doesn't say it's wrong, then we can't say it's wrong. Well, then if that's your attitude, then you cannot say slavery is wrong. If you consider yourself a Bible believing Christian, then
Well, I think you can remedy it by claiming that like that Jesus taught something different. Well, he also said, "I came to uphold the law."
yeah, because I think also Jesus even like I know Paul definitely said like the whole like slaves obey your masters, but I think even Jesus even made references to like slaves and like still saying it's good for them to obey, but like never saying oh, but don't own people. But the thing is like because the defense and I said I knew this was going to be like a whole other topic, but it's in my brain now, so at least gotta get this part out and then we can move on. But a lot of these people who take the Bible, as they say, take the Bible seriously, like in this way. Another thing they would say is, well, I guess I should start with like one of the defenses that the people who try to say that the Bible does actually condemn slavery. Well, they say, well, it doesn't do it directly, but it does it indirectly through like the messages of like, love your neighbor. We're all made in God's image and
Well,
treat everyone
it would be reckless of God, they say, to just come out and ban slavery. Um,
right.
sure,
But
maybe, but also he could have said from the very beginning, "Don't do it."
yeah,
So
I
it
mean,
wouldn't have been
like
like an institution.
yeah, I can't remember who made the point, but they said like especially like bringing the Israelites out of Egypt, out of slavery, and to like starting their own nation, basically like from scratch. He's like that would have been a perfect time to say, okay, now that we're starting over, no more slaves. Like
Yeah, with the setting up judges and Ten
yeah,
Commandments, it could have been like
like
slaves are bad, and K was number 10.
yeah, and it's like you can't tell them not to own people, but you can tell them to chop off the tips of their dicks. Like, which one of those really sounds more reasonable? But anyway,
That
so the
reminds
people,
me, I started listening to the audiobook more. Stavrokopoulou, what's her first name?
oh yeah, Francesca.
Francesca Stavrokopoulou. She has that Anatomy of God, um,
Hmm.
and I had forgotten that I hadn't finished the penis chapter.
Mm.
It gets quite graphic. You know, there's a holy foreskin relic. Where's the Jesus foreskin somewhere?
I've heard of that. Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
But I heard from someone else that Jesus' foreskin actually went out into space, and that's what formed the rings of Saturn. So, I don't know why, but
Why would it be the
anyway.
ring?
So back to my digression on this digression. So the defense people have to say, well, it doesn't directly like condemn slavery, but does it indirectly. The whole like love people and stuff. But the thing is, with these people who take the Bible seriously in this way, they'll also say like, well, even if you take something like, well, what does it mean to love someone? Okay, well, you have to go to the Bible to define what love means. And so you can't, so by that logic, you can't say that loving someone means no slaves because the Bible doesn't say that. So, ergo, if you believe that slavery is wrong, but you think the Bible says that, that is something you are bringing to it. And good for you that you're bringing it to there and not letting the Bible completely dictate your morality like you might think you are. But yeah, congratulations. You're following your own morality, and we're happy for you.
There's a lot more people who are cultural Christians, even they go to again they go to church and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, I they don't seem to realize that they really are in that spiritual but not religious group, and they're more of a cultural Christian. They just don't know it. So you have conversations with some people, and you're like, "You're agnostic. you're just using
Yeah,
you're just using Jesus' words about it."
yeah. Like give an example. Like what you're.
Well, we can't know anything for sure. That's like
Uh,
beyond our ability to fully measure
yeah,
and science
uh,
about it and stuff, you know. And
that drives me crazy. Yeah.
I'm like, well, I mean, it's kind of true. Like, if we can't science it, then like there is probably a limit to what we can grasp as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Yeah.
and so they're on board with that concept, and that like, yeah, we might not ever really know for sure. And they're like, yeah, but I still go to church and believe in God, and uh,
Yeah. That's
but you don't know for sure that's a thing, and like, no, I don't. I, it's almost like there's a lot of agnostic Christians who don't know that they're agnostic, and they
mhm.
kind of like explore that agnosticism through a church kind of vehicle, even though like a lot of things
Yeah.
happened and are said there that they don't believe.
Yeah. It's kind of weird, but then but at the same time, like I said, it's like they don't realize they're agnostic, so they'll still kind of I don't know, maybe argue with, but at least like push back or like on people who are actually like fully like admittedly agnostic, or just people like myself who may consider themselves atheists who just say I just don't believe any of it. But this is something that I posted on Facebook because I'm old the other day. It's like okay, so it makes sense to me that Christians are like not in total agreement on whether or not you can lose your salvation. Like, because
Mhm.
if you read the Bible, yeah, it's confusing. There's passages supporting. So it's like, so it makes sense to me that they're still split on it. But what does not make sense to me is how so many of them are just kind of okay with that.
Yeah,
They're
doesn't
like,
that
yeah,
show
it
that
doesn't matter because like it
doesn't it
does.
show
Like,
that like it's not really their reality?
I mean, I don't know any other way to see it. If it really doesn't bother them that they can't say for sure whether or not someone can lose their salvation, because like that's one of the things. Like, because like Christians will say things like, "Well, like as long as we agree on the core like fundamentals, like we can disagree on the peripheral stuff," but they'll usually put stuff like that like in the peripheral. Like,
I,
how the hell,
I think it's more
literally,
like
how the hell?
they're like, as long as we agree about the words we're using to talk about these things, because that seems to be more what it
Yeah.
is. If you use the right words, it doesn't raise any red flags. But
Hmm.
as soon as you start using a word that um, like instead of I don't know whatever in a good place with God or on fire, like if you start using the words like
Hmm.
enlightened, which means the same thing,
Yeah.
um, is an enlightening experience. They're like, that's kind of new age or Freudy or
Yeah.
not always like that. Like the last person that I talked to, who was kind of like agnostic Christian, um, there wasn't anything that they like required. They still kind of got the like if you're going to deconstruct, you don't want to like make sure you don't deconstruct Jesus. They kind
Yeah.
of saw the point in that, and I was like, yeah, I kind of get it. But if you don't put everything on the table, then you're not you're not really chasing after what you believe. You're chasing after what people have told you to believe
Yeah.
on some level still. And it's like
Yeah.
it's
Or
not really yours.
yeah. Yeah. Or I guess, you know, per the topic, like you're not really interested in what's really true. Because I think if, because to me, like what this to me projects, like when people say, well, you can deconstruct everything except Jesus or like whatever other thing, to me, what that says is whether they are conscious of this or not, or whether they would admit it or not, it's basically them saying, I don't think Jesus could handle that level of scrutiny because I'm afraid if I deconstructed
Yeah.
Jesus, I'd lose it.
It's an admission there's valid arguments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean, because like, what are they afraid of? Like, why not deconstruct Jesus if he really is that so obviously and completely and undeniably true?
And Jesus, okay, so the whole certainty thing, and the sin of certainty, not that I use sin anymore as a thing in
Mhm.
my life, but uh,
Yeah.
Jesus talked about like his some of his parables are metaphors. Like he's the gate, um, the way, the truth, and the life. It was it's like he was a way to God or
Mhm.
to enlightenment or understanding. Um, he didn't say anywhere he was the destination. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It was always like this is the way to go to get there, and except for in John where he's like, no one comes except through me. And it's like pervert first of all, and
That's why he invited Thomas to finger his holes in that particular gospel.
yeah, well, Thomas just had a thing for holes
Yeah, it's
and
like
doubting
come,
they're there.
he's
Thomas
like
had a
come through me.
problem. Like that's why he didn't so much leave society as society made him leave because he had a thing. He had roaming fingers.
Then Jesus was like, please come through me, Thomas, in all the holes. Yeah.
I'm a gardener now, Thomas. Like, remember that when like one of the Marys found the gardener and she's like, it wasn't a gardener, it was a gardener, but it was also Jesus, completely Jesus. I recognized him. Didn't look like him at all. And you're like, this is bad writing.
This is the most believable thing ever. Yeah.
Now, I think
So,
that one was kind of like a little theology shift where seeing Jesus in everyone, even the gardener who people would normally ignore because they like rummage in pig shit all day
yeah.
with plants and stuff. So I kind of, there's potentially some usefulness there like that, but
Yeah. But then there's the part of me that's wondering, like, or like, because also the more I have learned about like the Gospels and like why they were written the way they were, and like so many things that I thought, oh, this is in there for some theological point, but so I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't like some kind of trope from like Homer or some sort of like other like Greek fable or something that most people just aren't aware of, because seriously, like look it up, folks. Like the people of that time, like where the Gospels were written, like were very Hellenized, like very influenced by Greek culture. Like Greek literary tropes are all over the Gospels. Like even like the story of like Jesus casting the legion of demons out into the pigs. Like look it up. Like that's I don't want to say like ripped off from, because that's not really the way they put it. Like this sort of thing was done all the time, but that was basically a play on a story from the Odyssey. But they were just like, let's make the Jesus version of that story, and like, but people like you're muted, or I can't hear you for some reason.
son of a
But
bitch.
yeah, but because like people like, as I've heard, like when Christians like talk about those stories, they'll like all these like discussions and debates and like thinking about it really hard. Oh, what does this mean? Like, why did Jesus do that? And trying to come up with some kind of theological reason. It's like there is no theological reason. It's because they're borrowing it from another story. Like that's, or even the whole like in Mark, like when Jesus would like perform a miracle for somebody, but he'd tell them, "Oh, but don't tell anyone." And we'd have,
Yeah.
"Oh, why is he saying that? Oh, just because he's trying." Like I don't even remember all the different explanations we'd come up with. But no, again, that's like it's from uh, the I can't remember. It's also the yeah, it's also from the Odyssey. Yeah,
It's good
so,
propaganda. It connects
mm-hmm.
it connects new information or a new story to a feeling you've already had. So it kind of gets your kind
Mm-hmm.
of hijacks your brain a little bit, and so now when you think or have that same feeling that you had when you read that original story or heard it because I didn't really read, um, now you have a Jesus feeling. Um, churches do that all the time now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's like the Christian Nine Inch Nails band, and
Mm-hmm.
it's never like that. But
Right. Yeah.
or they'll try to use like movie clips, and they'll
Uh,
like, here's great theology, and the Matrix was lousy for that.
oh yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Uh, way more Buddhist and
Yeah. Which what I
Taoist than
yeah, but what I love is like because I've heard all the sermons and videos and stuff talk about like all these like stories like are basically like messianic messages. Like they're like, oh, why do all these characters in movies look like Jesus? Mm-hmm. It's like
because
maybe
Jesus
it's
looks like a white dude, and that's a white dude. At least as far
no,
as you know, like that's their picture.
no, I didn't mean like that, but I mean like no, but it's like they don't really realize what's really going on. It's like no, it's like all these things that are happening in stories that kind of match like the Jesus story. It's not because everyone's trying to be like Jesus. It's because there's this larger narrative that the Jesus narrative is also trying to match.
Yeah,
So it's not that all these things look like Jesus. It's like all these things, including Jesus, look like the same thing because we're human, and those are the kind of stories we write. So yeah, so that's why I think it. So speaking of like determining what things are true and what things are story, I think this is like a good example of people conflating the whole like factual truth with real story kind of thing, or like where it's like so many people view all these stories in the Bible, is it like, well, it has to be true for me to be able to get a lesson from it
Like,
because it has
or it
to
has to
be,
be a fact for my
yeah,
faith to be worth anything, which
right,
is also not faith, FYI.
right, which I'm cool with because I said many times I think faith is kind of overrated anyway. But yeah, if you're wanting to have a faith and like and structure it that way, then
So
yeah, that's
here's
not how
why.
faith works.
So faith could be useful, and I know they're not using it this way, like religiously,
Mhm.
but like
Yeah.
um, conflating the word, the definitions of faith, like a religious faith, or like you believe the sun will come up tomorrow. You don't know for sure, but based on all previous experiences, the sun's coming up tomorrow.
Yeah.
So there is a kind of faith in something unseen, but it's based on previous information. Uh,
Yeah.
so I can kind of see like, so when we had like super prayer experiences or somebody was healed or whatever, like in a way it does make logical sense to kind of project that into the future. Like, this is a thing that happens, I can expect it to
Mhm.
continue happening.
Right.
um but then there's, and we would probably get to the bottom of connecting with what that really is. uh like, if people are doing it and like it's the human beings healing each other, tapping into something like
Mhm.
the connection with the person, or a connection with yourself, um or a connection with the universe, who knows. uh
Right.
Confusing like a factual experience with that.
Mm.
When
Yep.
you say, okay, I know what this is, and I can expect this to continue into the future. It's when you've started to nail it down that you've
Mm.
broken it. That's also a big Taoism thing. Um,
Mm.
once, what is it? Basically, once you name the Tao, or try to describe it, because Tao just means the way. It's the flow of everything. And once you try to describe it, you've broken it. Because now,
Which
because now,
itself is a description.
what's that?
Which that itself is actually a description.
Right. So the only way to truly experience it and know it is personally. And so, like, when I told you that, like, I felt like there were things I couldn't really describe unless you had experienced it, because it was
Mhm.
not going to make sense at all. Because I, I can only, it only works if you describe kind of somebody else's experience, and they're like, yeah, that's what it was like. And but that only works as like a connecting idea, because uh, of a similar experience or a similar insight. But without that similar insight, I can't really like make it make sense in any kind of like helpful way.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Like with your gummy experience.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That was fun. I need to try that again, which means I need to get more gummies. But anyway, um, so yeah, uh, you're not going to believe this, but I lost my train of thought. Um, so what were you just talking about? Um, what were we talking about before that?
Specific, name it. Um, we're talking about Mark further back.
Oh,
Hellenistic.
not that far back.
I know, but sometimes
You were
that.
talking, yeah, you were talking about the Tao, like describing it. It's like a no.
Oh, when somebody, like, when we have like a spiritual experience, and we're like, hey, this cool thing happened, and then you put your words on it, or somebody else does, and you're like, okay, I can expect like uh, the Holy Spirit to do this thing. And okay, well, okay,
Okay.
first of all, is it a spirit? Is his name the Holy Spirit? Like, there's a lot of assumptions in here.
Mhm. Okay, that was almost far back enough in the
Okay.
conversation, but that got me there. It's okay. The whole like how you're talking about like faith can be a helpful thing. You're talking about like the sun coming up, even though like I haven't seen the sun come up tomorrow yet because tomorrow hasn't happened, but I still, believe it
Or
will.
have we?
It's right.
Because everything that ever
Um,
happens is happening right now, and all there is now. And we have seen the sun come up, or we've seen it explode tomorrow. I won't know
or we,
what I know until tomorrow.
right. Yeah. So because this is something people will say, like for people like me who will say like I don't like using faith or like I try not to have faith or whatever I might say is like, well, everyone has faith in something, and then like the sun coming up tomorrow is a popular example. But and again, this comes down to like semantics and really like what do you actually mean by the words? Because like I for things like believing that the sun is going to come up tomorrow, I prefer to use like words like trust
Right. Yeah.
that's going to happen because it is based on prior experience and some pretty solid evidence that we have that that's just how like planets and stars and gravity and rotation and orbits like just how that all works,
What
and
What's the
there's
thing Paul said? Like faith is
yeah, so the way
evidence of
Paul
things unseen.
yeah, it's these. Yeah, the way Paul defined faith is this in the Bible. I don't remember what book or what letter it was, or
I
even
don't
if that
know.
was what, or even
But
if it was a
Paul,
legitimate, like authentic Pauline epistle or not. But
I think it was.
regardless, it's in the Bible, so the Christians have to take it anyway. Um, where he says, "Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen."
Right. So
Which,
having
which,
faith in it proves it's real.
yeah, which, yeah. I mean, first of all, yeah, it's like first of all the whole like substance like evidence of things unseen, so that's why it kills me like when Christians try to say, well, faith it's not blind faith. It's like Paul literally says unseen. Like what else do you call that?
Right. He doesn't say
um
blind. He just said it's things unseen. That kind of means
right.
like period by anyone. Um,
Yeah, but
and
but
so like what the song "Once I Was Blind, but Now I See," Amazing Grace.
yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
it's like I think you're doing it wrong if you're seeing. And Paul said so.
Right. Hmm.
You can see it, then
But to
don't have
me,
faith in it.
yeah, but to me, they possibly more, I guess, indicting, if you will. Part of that is like the substance of things hoped for. So it's almost like if you have faith in something, that basically means like you have a bias toward it. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So again, that goes back to the whole like, well, like wanting something to be true. So you're just going to believe it. And I mean, I do that too. Yeah, there's plenty of things that I want to be true. Like, yes, I want it to be true that the sun will come up tomorrow. I want it to be true that like my kids are safe, like where they are right now, and they're happy. And um, I I want this beer that I've been drinking to continue to be delicious. Mm.
It's a cinnamon cookie. Like,
It doesn't say. It just says it has cinnamon, ginger, and vanilla. So I don't know if it's supposed to be like a gingerbread cookie or something, but that's kind of what it like notes it gives me anyway as I drink it. But yeah,
I'd be in
it's
for a
good.
snickerdoodle beer.
Ooh, we need to make beer again.
Yeah.
Like, can you put? But 'cause I remember a big thing in snickerdoodles is the cream of tartar. It's like, do you put? Can you put cream of tartar in a beer? Like, would that do anything?
No, I
Mm.
mean you probably shouldn't. I forget what that does. Is it like a crunchiness thing or a rising? It has a slight
Yeah,
bitter flavor. I know that.
yeah, I really don't remember. But yeah, well, um, so yeah, faith and like being things you hope for, but things you don't see. And so, and again, you also got to remember, like when Paul or whoever it was that wrote that, um, like in that time period, I mean, we didn't have like science, like at least as we know it. So when it comes to like how you're figuring out the world, like
Well, religion was how you did science.
yeah, so I guess like in general, I guess you could say just having faith was a much bigger part of life. I don't know, just because
I think we were too smart for our own good then. Like we had awareness of way more things than we can understand. and
Yep.
that's kind of crippling. And so we needed explanations, and we needed the
Yeah.
explanations to provide meaning for us because we're human beings, um, and only the useful stuff would survive as a story. And so you had kind of a survival of the fittest
Mm.
of these ideas. Um, and I'm not convinced ideas in a way aren't alive, because they like kind of see it now, like the clash of ideas like across the world. Old and new ideas are flipping back and forth in controls of the government, and um, old ideas are really trying to survive.
Mm.
um,
Well, I guess I would say our ideas are alive in that they are just so much a part of human beings, and we are alive.
are we?
So,
I don't know if we
well,
can.
now that you phrase it like that, I don't know.
I don't know if we
is
can
that is
really
that inflection filled me with doubt?
delineate, because like, where does something stop being dead and becomes alive? Like, where does a rock become a human being? To quote "What's Bless's nuts with the bad hair,"
Yeah,
Hovind.
yeah, Kent Hovind. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
of all the things I know him for, like the bad hair wasn't one, but now it
well, that
is.
just popped in my head because it's like that's creepy old man from the '70s.
Yeah, with me, it's more like he just like only talks out of one half of his mouth like this. Yeah, yeah, like dog will give birth to a dog.
Because there's no point where you can, like, you could zoom in forever on the development of living organisms on Earth. Like, there's no point where you could say, like, you could zoom in and say, okay, before this, not alive. Okay, and then that chemical did that thing, now alive. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's it's a gradient, like evolution is. Everything's a missing link.
Yep.
Um,
Oh yeah,
it's a
absolutely.
continuum.
Everything. Yeah, everything's a transition.
So I think everything's dead or everything's alive, because when you zoom out, you can say, okay, compared to this thing is dead, this thing is alive. Um, but then when those things get like infinitely close together, you can't tell.
Yeah, and I guess I would say like alive and dead. Those are just artificial constructs that
Yeah,
humans came up with because like at a point like before we had all the scientific knowledge where looking out in the world it was easier to since most things like fell on this spectrum a little more neatly in certain categories just like in general so it's easier to say like but yeah I
what
mean
if everything is conscious and everything's dead? Like, life is an illusion and everything's conscious, but we have like the
I don't know
consciousness of a molecule would be like, I how do we even explain what that awareness would be? It has awareness, and which then
yeah I don't know um so yeah so back to like truthiness and such um yeah so
truth is all
there's
relative. Truth compared, like, yes, does it have to be compared to something? Like, is true compared to this? Is there, wouldn't ultimate truth just be all inclusive? Like, if it exists, it's part of the one truth.
I don't know. Sorry, my brain was going in one direction, and then you just like.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Grab the wheel, Tommy.
No, I'm not saying I was wrong. I'm just saying that's why I had like no answer because like
You're
my
like,
brain
where
going in one direction.
were you
Yeah.
like the driver's ed instructor, and you're like, oh, where's the brake on my side?
Yeah. Um. No, but like so, there's like the aspects of, like what we already said, like you know, if it's not true, would you want to know? Like, does it matter if you believe something that's not true? But then also like how do you determine if your beliefs are true? Like this, I guess where my mind was going, it also gets into the whole like presuppositionalism, where you just where Christians will just start with the assumption that whatever is a part of their faith just is true, like evidence be damned, like, and then you just whatever evidence you do have, you just try to make it fit. Because I was thinking back to like so that post I mentioned earlier about me saying like how it's doesn't make sense to me that so many Christians are just okay with the fact that they don't agree on whether someone can lose their salvation. And so,
I remember that I wasn't, but I felt like I needed to be okay. Like I wasn't okay with having like very different ideas of like how to even be saved or what saved meant.
yeah.
Um,
But like I said, but there are all those Christians who will say, well, you know, it's okay if we disagree on like the peripheral things, and they'll throw things. Also, that goes, I think, is something else we mentioned. Like when it comes to like what the Bible lays out, it's like how can there even be like non-essential peripheral things? Like if God bothered to put it in the Bible, shouldn't it be pretty like core? But yeah,
it's like
but
the Bible is both open to interpretation then, and you can prove text things, and every verse is an instruction in some way.
yeah. Yeah. So, so I guess, so speaking of like figuring out truth and like how faith kind of comes into it, I guess this is one of my problems with faith. The way I like will describe it sometimes is the way it actually plays out, and whether and certainly the people, most people wouldn't actually word it this way, but what it essentially boils down to is like basically it's just functionally your ability to deny like the plain reality in front of your face in favor of what your faith says you should believe is true. Um, so, like for instance, like so, speaking of that post about me being confused, like why Christians are okay with not agreeing on this issue of like whether you can lose your salvation or not. So, like I got a comment from someone, and so like I said, I always like hesitate like sharing like specific interactions because I don't want to feel like I'm picking on the person, but I also kind of doubt they're watching anyway. But if you are, like I love you, but they shared this verse about the verse that says like basically like those who like left us were never really part of us. So she's basically saying like, no, you don't lose your salvation, but if someone ever seems to like lose their faith or walk away, and they just never had their faith to begin with, it's that simple. And then they like
It's
quoted the
as
verse
simple
like,
as no true Scotsman,
right? So
no true Christian will
mhm.
leave the faith.
Yeah, so basically what I said, and I was rather lengthy because I had some thoughts on that. Uh, first of all, was I didn't say, but what the fuck? Um, I basically said like that verse is some serious gaslighting because
Not to
I
mention
said,
the
okay,
fallacy, but
yeah, and I also said, okay, well, also you're not really addressing my points. Like I'm saying from the outset, Christians have like so it's I didn't put it this way, but the way I'm thinking is like, okay, my premise here was some Christians believe A and some Christians believe B. And her response is, well, I believe A. I'm like, okay. Like,
that's such a
all
colonial
right.
Christian thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So,
Like if you
mhm,
go to like South America or Central America, where like Christianity was brought to them, it wasn't theirs.
mhm,
Um, we kind of took a big white dump of Christianity all over the United States. But it
right.
yeah. Um, but yeah, they don't say the stuff like that because there's no assumption that I was asking you for your thoughts. Like,
Right. Yeah. So,
what was it on? Oh shit! Where was it? Somebody made a comment about being the only white guy at a thing, and so he's talking about you think he's gonna talk about how uncomfortable he was or whatever, and he's like, so the first thing I thought was, well, I guess I'm in charge.
oh, oh, shit.
Yeah, it's so perfectly awful.
Speaking of perfectly awful, yeah. So back to like I said, I don't want to sound like I'm picking on this comic because this is something that.
Yeah, sorry, I steered
So
you.
this whole idea of, because like so many Christians feel like they can tell someone like me who walks away from the faith, oh well, clearly you were never a believer in the first place. Like, well, first of all, like fuck all the way off with that, because okay, if you
You don't know
because
me.
because also I told this person I'm pretty sure you were pretty convinced I was a believer too. So first of all, like this should be another thing that like freaks
Your
Christians out
judgment's
is.
bad.
Yeah, so I said this should be another thing that freaks you out. It's like, because now, like, how can you trust anyone's confession of faith? Because if all it takes, okay, if at any point someone leaves, then that immediately negates all of it. Then unless you know for sure whether or not someone will ever walk away from the faith, which you don't know, then how can you be sure of anyone's confession of faith, including your own? Because how do you know you're not going to walk away someday? Like,
hmm
so yeah,
Or believe a
and I,
different thing that like your friend group at the church thing, that organization says that's not a thing you're allowed
yeah.
to believe here.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and to put a much finer point on it, like I said, okay, well, just imagine that. Say, like I had died of cancer, like before I had deconverted, or at least was like public about deconverting. It's like everyone at my funeral, like they'd all be saying, "Oh, he's in heaven now because he was such a strong believer," you know.
well, if it was an open mic, I would say something.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate that.
I'd be like, no, you got to understand, like, you may believe that, but like, this is not something honoring of Tommy, because I can tell
Yes,
you that like he's irritated right now if he's aware.
yeah. But yeah, which also I will say now, just in case I don't ever get the chance to get this codified like in my will or whatever before if I do pass on before, I I kind of want my funeral to be more open mic because that's actually how it was like for my grandmother like several years ago. Like I guess they had wanted to have like a preacher there to deliver a message, but I guess they just weren't available or whatever. So it just turned into just like different friends and family member just getting up and
Yep.
sharing things about her. There was no like official message or whatever. And now, sure, she was a very Christian woman, like her entire life. So that was a big theme about it. But that's kind of what I want my funeral to be. But yeah, I don't like for anyone listening now who may be at my funeral, like I mean, yeah, no gospel messages, like nothing about I'm in a better place now, or like none of that shit. So yeah, Matt, if you're still around, first of all, you're definitely invited to my funeral. But yes, feel free to take the mic and keep those fools in line.
At my dad's
Yeah.
funeral, it was a Catholic mass, and so like Catholic mass funeral is kind of like it's a lot like a regular Catholic mass, but there's a dead guy up front,
Right.
and like and the
Yeah.
readings have to do. There's like a there's an it was a thing. There's
Yeah.
an
And Barnes, I see
approved
your comments. I'll get to them in a sec. But
yeah.
yeah, Matt, finish.
There's an approved verse list, and you pick something from it, and like that has to be the reading. One of those things. Like those are like the papal approved uh, ways to honor your loved one. And my mom wasn't going to have it any other way because everybody that she's loved before that in her family had a Catholic funeral, and so it was kind of like a uh, sentimental kind of thing. But like, I wanted to be able to. I wanted to be able to say what I wanted, and I wanted other people to be able to share things like people who knew from like years ago but weren't in touch anymore who were there. Um, and there was this whole thing beforehand where I was like, can't. I was like, I can't promise you I'm not going to cuss. Like, if we talk and share about things, then like I can't not be me. That's just how this goes for me. And I'm like,
Right.
if an F bomb comes out, an F bomb comes out. And my mom's like, well, you can't do that at church. Like, and I was like, I, I was bothered. It was a
Yeah.
whole thing, and it made some of my relatives uncomfortable who were there. And like they go to church and they were like trying to make it make sense to me. And I was like, look, and I was kind of like, no, I know where you're coming from.
Right.
uh, it's like,
Yeah.
but like, I'm talking about my dad. Everything else can fuck off. Like, um,
Mhm.
so I had an improved reading, and I read it. It meant something to me. I picked that one because it was the one that connected to something I remembered about him. But that was all in my head. Like other people got to have their feeling about it, um, which is like kind of good in a way. But um, there was no straight communication. It was all communication via a shared medium.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah,
Um,
I'll agree with Barnes here. Like, yeah, the absolute last thing one at my funeral is some stranger doing a cut and paste service on my behalf. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, this
But
wasn't strangers. We were just reading strangers' words.
which is kind of the same thing,
Yeah, it's
really.
bad. Both
Yeah.
bad.
Because that's the thing. Like, okay, so if someone to me is not a stranger, but if they're not being themselves, then are they being a stranger?
I think so.
Yeah, I
I
think so too.
like when somebody's when I can sense how somebody's feeling and like their behavior or their words do not match it. I just want to run away. I like I don't know how to act.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, going back previous part of the conversation. If you're the only white guy in an event, you're either poking into something that's none of your business or you should have brought something to the cookout. Absolutely.
It's probably always a good bet to bring some kind of like barbecue item, like a
Mhm.
side or entree to like
Yeah.
any gathering. I mean,
Oh,
is anybody really going to be mad you've done that?
yeah. And if they are mad, that sounds like a them problem. So
Yeah, vegans maybe, but
yeah. But yeah, but back to the whole like, well, if someone like leaves the faith, and that means they were never a believer in the first place. I'm like, okay, so going back to the whole like the problem with letting your faith inform what you think is true when it really should be the other way around, like your faith or trust or whatever word you have, it should be based in reality. Now when it comes to things that you just have no actual basis, like you have no like prior experience, like no other evidence for, like, yeah, in those instances you say, okay, I have no idea what's going to happen. I have no reason to think any outcome is more likely, but I just believe or I have faith or I trust that this is what's going to happen. And especially if that's the thing that like gives you the hope or whatever in that situation. But you should be able to say, but if something else, like if evidence does come up or any kind of experience contradicts what you were hoping for or had faith in, like you should be able to adjust your thinking to match that. So what I say, like for the people who say, well, if you leave the faith and you just never were faith, okay, well then okay, essentially you're calling me and probably any Christian who's ever left the faith, you're calling us liars,
well, you
and
didn't
that's
know you were
basically
lying.
like, but no,
Still
because like,
guilty though.
or you're calling us all delusional because like I absolutely believed all of it,
Well,
like
now you're asking for deeper thinking than they were prepared for, because the whole point
right,
is to circle around the idea and not really investigate it.
yeah, because here's the thing, like, and I didn't say this to this person, but basically my message to anyone who would say that to me is, okay, so I tell you for like 35 years or whatever it was. I think probably I grew up in it, but I probably wasn't really aware of it till I was like 3, and I deconverted at 38. So yeah, 35 years. It's a nice round number, I guess. Yeah. So for 35 years, absolutely believed it. So if I tell you that, like, no, I sincerely believed it. I was a devout Christian. Like anyone who knew me would have said, yes, Tommy is a devout Christian. So, and so, like I said, you're basically going to have to tell me that either I was just delusional, in which case, like, that is also very problematic because you're saying that God will basically allow you to erroneously think that you're saved when you're really not, which is pretty fucked up. And
Well, there's a Bible verse about that gives you over to something, but like that's kind of cruel if he also never really got your attention about it.
mm, right, yeah. So basically, you have to say that I was, or you're telling me that you think I'm lying, and that basically you trust what someone wrote in a letter a couple thousand years ago more than you trust me, a person you actually know. But that's what you have to believe is true in order to keep your faith in what this book is saying.
Yeah, if they're a fundamentalist about it, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why like this, that's getting
So
it completely backward. Just like that's letting your faith structure reality instead of letting reality structure whatever you have faith in. So
I had a couple things. I only remember one of them right now.
okay, let's
But I
Barnes got a
think
couple things too, so we can.
hope is critical. So uh, without hope, people despair and don't want to be around anymore. Um, so like I wonder what to do with someone, like how aggressive to be or how direct um, about like spiritual things if like their only hope is Jesus. If I like pick away at that, then they're in for like they're gonna slam into something else pretty hard.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it depends because I mean, and again, like like I said, it depends on the person because I know for my experience, like since my deconversion came off the heels of going through stage 4 cancer, which was for most of my life, would have said, oh, this is something I couldn't make it through without God and without my faith, but for me, like coming out of it and then losing my faith, it was actually empowering because then I was realizing, oh, this thing I thought I couldn't make through without God, I just did. And on top of like everything else I've been through in my life, like if there is no God, then that means I've made it through all of it without
See,
God. So
but
that's what I like to tell.
because your emotions don't process quickly, that may have been an advantage there. Because I think a
Oh, for
lot of
sure. Yeah.
people would have been like in the void and just like where you were in the void briefly, and then you like moved on to like, oh well, that means this. Some people like I think the void is just so terrifying to be in that they're like, what's more void than void, and they're like, I don't want to go there, and it's like, no, there's something on the other side. Like there is. It doesn't just like,
Mm.
okay, you're at the null point right now. You're at 0 point. Like before, you were in negative numbers. Now you're on zero. Zero's freaking weird because how do you have a digit that means nothing? How is something a symbol for nothing? Like
But yeah, I mean, like
there's a
humans didn't even,
positive one past that.
yeah, like humans didn't even have the number zero forever. Like
Yeah,
that's
you can
true.
thank Muslims for that.
Yeah,
Arabs actually, but they're a Muslim, so why not?
yeah, probably. Yeah. So,
No,
but
for
like
real.
a few
Like that's
things.
the thing.
Yeah, a few things from Barnes here. Yeah, I hate to say it, Matt, but you got to let them slam. Just be there
Oh,
for
I
them
know.
till they
Like I was
fall.
just about to say, like, but
Yeah,
then I don't want to be egotistical enough to think that like that's my job to protect them from slamming because
yeah,
like maybe they need to slam. I don't know.
yeah. Because that's because again, like going back to like I guess the message I gave myself. This is what I like to tell other people because I've like there's this friend of mine who I've been in conversation with who still considers themselves like a believer of some sort. They still love Jesus and all that, and I don't know the full details. I just know in their life they've been through some serious shit, like stuff I can't even imagine.
Yeah,
Stuff that I'm sure I definitely preferred going through cancer than what they've been through. But
yeah, an
they're
easy
just
time of
like,
cancer. Stage 4
yeah.
and all considered.
Well, I mean, yeah, relatively, like, yeah, it, yeah. Anyway, yeah, physically it really wasn't that bad,
It was like a
but
mediocre
yeah,
cruise.
it was just very pokey.
Yeah.
So but what I tell this person, and only because I actually have a relationship and rapport, and like we're willing to like share things with each other and push each other on things. It's like I tell them, it's like, look, like I know you feel like you can't let go of this concept of God because you feel like you can't get through what you've been through without it. But I'm telling you, if there is no God, you did. So basically putting that as I guess a much softer place to land.
Hmm.
They do end up slamming into something. Um, but yeah, I just want to go back because Barnes had a couple good
Yeah, I
comments
just saw
here.
one.
Yeah. So Barnes says, this is going back a bit. Frankly, my conclusion is that either there is no God or that God accepts all. Good
That's
thoughts.
that's
Yeah,
kind of my
but
version.
yeah,
Like, but the way that like makes sense to me is that either God is everything or God is nothing, and
hmm,
I don't know that we could tell the difference from our perspective.
yeah. So I usually say, well, based on the nature of like at least what they say a God is, like if we're able to think of it as everything or nothing, then I'm leaning towards the nothing on that. But that's a whole other thing. So yeah, as he also says, anything
I
else
want to hear
is
more
a
about
higher.
that sometime. That sounded interesting.
What I just said.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, um, so, but anything else is a hierarchy that, frankly, is not biblical. I now agree with the hierarchy part. I will push back a little bit on the not biblical, at least depending on what part of the Bible you're reading, because there are definitely some parts of the Bible where God is not accepting of a lot of certain people or things. But yeah, like I said, it depends on which part you read. So,
Yeah, New Testament
biblical and
hierarchy, like
unbiblical.
that's
Yeah,
less of a thing.
yeah. Let's see what else he says. There's so many non-believing Christians and believing non-Christians that muck up the absolutist point.
For
Right?
real.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. So,
It might be where the spiritual but not religious thing comes
yeah.
from. Like people realize that and they're like, this but not that language is useless. How about let's just say both.
Yeah.
Spiritual
Yeah,
and
but
not.
yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, so were you wanting to hear me elaborate on that point more, or I
Sure,
almost feel
yeah.
like that. So remind me what the point was. The whole like, if God can be everything or nothing,
You're leaning towards
based on what
nothing.
I'm told. Yeah, based on what I'm told, God, if anything, is okay.
Right, okay. Based on
Yeah, especially I guess particularly if God is a relational God with the desire and ability to actually have a relationship with us. It's like that kind of God. Like it shouldn't even be an option that God is nothing. Like that God like has to be everything.
okay, yeah.
So
I
if
see where
I'm
you're going.
but so if I'm not convinced, so if this God is not making himself known to me, then I feel like, well, then I'm going with nothing, because I feel like if it was everything, I would know. You know,
Well,
it's like
would you
it's like
though?
you can't.
Because to like if God is everything, then we would just call it science. Like there we wouldn't be able to distinguish because all we know is that the stuff that is what is, and
Yeah,
we
yeah,
don't know its
but
identity.
yeah, but I guess for me, like at that, this is just the way my mind works with these sorts of things. Like at that point, I don't see the point in calling it God, because
I
what
hear
the
you.
word
Yeah,
God has meant for, because this is one of my problems with Jordan Peterson is like how he, it's like,
I think Jordan Peterson has problems with Jordan Peterson. He's not well.
uh, right, yeah. So that's my problem is it's like when you have to like mold a word beyond what people really mean when they usually say it. It's like to me that just means you're desperate to hold on to the concept, so you're willing to just make it mean whatever it could mean for you to just be able to hold on to it. But it's like saying no, like what? Well, no,
I
my,
find
my
him.
brain can only hold one at a time.
He
That's
is so intriguing. He looks like he shouldn't be able to pilot his body anymore. Eh, He looks so unwell. I I'm just he's like a sideshow freak now.
Mhm.
I don't understand
Mm.
how he makes the kind of sense he does when he's only eating meat. Like like the toxin levels, and he's like a red meat eater a lot. Like,
Mm.
why
Hmm.
is he gonna have such the colon cancer?
Sorry about I can't actually click on the video link from here.
Yeah, this platform is mostly helpful.
Yeah, all I can do is show it. I can't actually click on it. But if people are interested, I guess it's probably easy for other people to just see it in the comments on Facebook. For anyone, if anyone's watching on YouTube, hop over to the Facebook page. You can check out this link that our buddy Barnes.
It looks like I mean, what annoys me the most about it on this platform is it looks like a link that I can click on, and then I go to it and it just says show, and like, oh,
Yeah,
nice,
yeah.
good
So
work,
it's 2 hours and
everybody.
55 minutes. Now, Barnes, if you could tell us what it is.
I think it's Jordan Peterson, maybe
Uh,
just being
oh yeah, so
batshit.
yeah, so when it comes to like the way people, I think my issue with the way people just keep redefining the word God and like what it really means. Like again, like going back to you were talking about Francesca Stavrakopoulou's book, God and Anatomy, because
It's
like
an easy listen.
yeah, now I know obviously like gods have been different depending on which culture it is, but like throughout in which period of human history, or even other animal histories as well. Maybe badgers have gods. I don't know. But
They worship Satan.
it's like they started out again, generally speaking. Oh, a brief look at Jordan Peterson. 2 hours and 50. I guess
Oh, that's
brief as you can.
some more news episode. That's amazing.
Oh, oh, okay. I think I've seen that one. Yeah. So yeah, people check out some more news on the YouTube. Our friend Barnes is one of the writers for it. Fantastic show.
And the guy Cody who hosts that, Cody Johnston or Johnson, he should there should be like internet Grammys or not Grammys,
Yes.
internet. What's the daytime?
Oh, maybe YouTube should just have like the Tubies award. There, I
Something,
just came up
but
with an
for
idea.
like not just like everybody thought this was neat. No, it's like really well done stuff. Some more news
Yes. Mhm.
needs a bigger audience. It's
I agree.
amazing satire.
Oh, and he's a fellow Ohioan.
He has the bitterness of a liberal Ohioan.
Yeah, one of the ones who was smart enough to move away.
He's
So anyway,
enthusiastically sarcastic.
oh, for sure. But yeah, but with the whole like the way like God has just been redefined to me, it just seems like oh, good point. Yeah, money over war. So yeah, go like, subscribe, comment,
Yeah, there's me being white again
notification bells,
or
like
something.
yeah, all the things.
They
Yeah,
no that
some more news. Check it out. Um, but yeah, so
they're part of the group
like
that didn't make it into like HBO satire shows money, uh, but totally could. There's a guy who used to do an internet thing on Cracked, and now he's the head writer for uh, Last Week Tonight. Anyway, he's making crazy money, and he's like equally talented with a bunch of people on there, and now they're making internet money.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry, that was a tangent.
All right. So, how many times I've said this phrase? So the whole like redefining the word God to me, it just comes across as such a. It's like they're just trying to protect the word, like just trying to do it. Like ad hoc is just like the phrase that keeps coming up. Yeah, it's like it's like how can we redefine God to still fit in what has now become our version of reality? So, like, speaking of like referencing specific things, have you ever watched the Deep Drinks podcast on YouTube?
Not very much, but I have seen one or two.
Yeah, he had a recent episode. It might have been actually today or yesterday, but pretty recently. He was actually interviewing like a Christian, but he was like one of those like super progressive. Like, I don't care what you really believe. I just care about following Jesus and taking care of people.
It's
Which is like
then why do you
cool.
care what you believe?
Yeah, and the guy actually was very like open and honest. Well, like because like the host, blanking on his name, I want to say David, um, just flat out asked him like, "So why do you still believe in God?" And he basically said like, "Honestly, it's because this is what I was brought up in, and like the whole like belief in God was just so ingrained into me. It's just part of my wiring now. It's like I just kind of can't help it."
I
And
Yeah, I have a friendly spot in my heart for Catholic stuff. Uh, and
mm-hmm,
but like big
I
problems
feel
with a
you.
lot of official Catholic stuff. Like the ritual of it, like is kind of deep and poetic if you're aware of why it's being done.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
yeah,
So
I don't know what to do with that.
yeah. So, but what? But it's still there was several parts of his interview that still bothered me because he was still like because like when the host, I guess I want to say it's David, but don't quote me on that. Um,
I
when
don't
he
know.
would because he's an atheist. Um, so then when he started going through all the reasons, but you know, also a former Christian. So when he started going through the reasons like why he no longer believes, like there was like he was talking about things like just like lack of evidence or like things the Bible says like don't make sense and like there's like all these like his experience and like so like but the guy was and basically in so many words. I don't even remember the phrases he used, but it was basically saying essentially saying, "Oh, but you're just going about it all wrong. You're looking for the wrong kinds of things." So it's like he was, but again, like to this guy's credit, like he admitted like this was his bias, but it's almost like he was trying to have it both ways. Like he's admitting, like, yeah, I don't really have good reasons, but then when this other guy was telling him his reasons, he's telling him those weren't really good enough reasons because he was also quoting some like high level like PhD like astrophysicist or whatever who I guess is a believer, but I guess she was saying like the more we learn about reality, it's like, oh well, we're just gonna have to like evolve our concept of God to like match reality and stuff. I'm like, well, first of all, that's assuming that a God even exists. To say that we're going to have to evolve our perception of what God is, like, or you can just say like we came up with gods for these very specific purposes to explain phenomena that we couldn't explain. Now we can explain a lot of those phenomena. It's like
But I don't think people knew they were doing that.
right, but
I think it
it's
was like a
still
default need to have an explanation.
right. But I'm saying, but now that we do have these explanations, it's like I don't like the illustration I like to use is like okay, people like the ancient Greeks, they would say, "Oh, Zeus is the one like throwing the lightning bolts." Like so, that's their explanation. So it's almost like
He sounds a little
it's like
insecure to
now
me.
that it's like slightly kind of compensating for something. But it's like so now that we've discovered where lightning bolts actually come from, we say, oh, to me, like the reasonable, like what makes sense is like, oh, I guess there's no Zeus because we can explain it. But to me, like this approach that this guy was taking, or the people who just feel like they need to just keep redefining God that's into something they can still hold on to, it's almost like saying, oh, so that's where lightning bolts come from. So I wonder what Zeus actually does. It's like you haven't established that he's actually there. It's like the one thing you were holding up as evidence that he exists, you now have a different explanation for. So usually that means, oh, I guess this thing doesn't exist. It's like when a kid finds out that like their Christmas presents were put under the tree by their parents, not Santa Claus. It's not like the kid goes, well, then I wonder what Santa Claus actually does. It's like, oh, I guess there's no Santa Claus.
I
But
think the
yeah,
difference is that God is, depending on who you ask, like either all inclusive or like very inclusive.
mm-hmm.
um, and so I think there's some like built-in flexibility, and whereas like Santa's a very specific thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I just think because one is a more amorphous concept. Like God doesn't even have a name. It's just like noun. Like you know what I mean? God is
Yeah,
just
I
like it's a
or I
noun,
am.
not a name.
Yeah,
So how can
yeah.
I don't know how can you have a personal relationship with some? I don't know.
Yeah, that's especially like the Christians who say who like have moved God out to. Well, he's just like the ground of all being itself, but he wants a relationship with you. It's like, well, how do you have a relationship with being?
I think if you really
But
ask them, though, they're saying that they would acknowledge their anthropomorphizing because based on our experience of
right,
that.
mm,
Uh,
yeah,
like
yeah.
I
No,
think Peter Enns is probably somewhere in between Christian and atheist. He strikes me as like agnostic who has appropriated Christian language.
Yeah, but he actually, and again, I haven't listened to him in several years, so I don't know
Me
where he is.
neither,
But I remember he actually did
honestly.
put out a video basically saying why he's not an atheist, but he was taking the like atheist only means strong atheist. He's like, and I can't say for certain. So it's like,
So he's scared of researching, apparently.
okay, but speaking of not being able to say, so our buddy Barnes with another good comment here. So I've had too many anecdotal, not evidence reasons that for some reason cannot allow me to think there's no 100% not God. I wish I could prove it, but honestly, it's not my job to prove or disprove anybody in the first place. Hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, and it's like I certainly can't discount or like tell someone else that their personal experience of something is wrong. I mean, that's not my place, you know.
No,
But
I
I
mean
guess, yeah.
experiences kind of give you clarity and like meaning and uh yeah, lived experience is really potent.
Hmm. Yeah. But I guess in a situation like this, like where some people, like based on their experience, like they're convinced that a God exists, but based on my experience, I'm pretty convinced that one doesn't. So this is going back to the whole like it's got everything or nothing kind of thing. To me, like what the nature of, especially if you're proposing a God that is relational at all, if it's a question, to me that tips the balance towards no. But that's my experience. So, but again, like if it's down to, well, your experience is yes and my experience is no, that still to me lends a little more weight towards a no. But like I said, that's just me. Obviously, I
Right.
can't tell you
Um
everything, but yeah. So I want
I,
to get to Barnes' other comment here real quick. So the issue with
okay.
the Santa versus parents analogy is that one is one authority instead of another, whereas the one is an authority and the other is a complex system of millions of years that we don't 100% know the origin for, that somehow ended with presence under the tree, is the part that was cut off there at the end.
A bunch of jerks. We need to complain about that. We were not aware of a character limit.
Yeah. Um, sorry, I'm 1.5 beers in, and this is a lot of words trying to process all of it. All right, so the issue with Santa versus parents analogies.
It's kind of saying like we can trace back far enough to know one for sure and not the other. Um, and
Yeah, like it was just like I wasn't meaning for it to be a. I mean, no analogies are perfect, obviously, but I guess it was just. Yeah, I guess I'm not saying they're the same thing. It's just like, but maybe by saying like by a similar logic, like well, if you can say one, then you can say the other. But yeah, but like I said, that literally was just off the top of my head. I could have been full of shit with that one. So. Because I also try to get away. I try to stay away from like comparing God to like Santa Claus and like child. Even though the Bible actually does extol the virtues of childlike belief, I try
and
not
in
to use
America,
like
like God is a lot of Santa Claus.
right. Oh, for sure. But I tried to stay. I tried not to make it sound like I'm like infantilizing like belief in God in that way. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's an easy go to. I catch
yeah,
myself doing that. I'm like, oh, he killed
yeah.
little babies. Yeah.
But yes, being quite pithy and we appreciate it. But he understands, so I'm glad. So
So there's some so here's where I was talking to that guy earlier today who like literally taught him how to do spiritual warfare.
and you don't need to name him, but I'm just curious. Do I know this guy?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
we may have been talking like he might have been in passing at man camp sometime when I was talking to you
Mm,
because he went there.
okay. Yeah, but real quick, as Barnes says, you really should watch the Some More News video I wrote for last week. Not to plug, but to plug.
Which
Oh,
one
plug
was it? I
away.
might have watched it.
Yeah, but by the way, plug away because, like we said, it's
Yeah,
good shit. We do not mind plugging this.
yeah. There
So
was a Christian one. I just
feel free,
assumed it
buddy.
was yours.
Yeah, and again, like leave a link for that in the comments if you want, and like we can click on later, or other people can see
I
on
remember it was very
Facebook.
good. I think it was like 7 days ago or something. The one that I watched. I think I watched it today. Very good. And there were some deep cuts there where I was like, that man's a Christian. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's
it was
good.
called "How the Right Sold Christianity." Oh yes, I don't think I've seen that one yet. I apologize, but
There's a
I
part
saw.
where one of the deep cuts where I was like, I don't know if Cody even knows what he's reading. It was where he's like, turns out a camel can go through the eye of a needle. Uh,
Yeah, you might. I mean, I think that's kind of a relatively well-known phrase. I
okay.
don't know, but yeah. So yeah, like I said, people like on Facebook, click that in the comments. People watching on YouTube, screenshot that and type it all out. Whatever you got to do.
Yeah, that commentary has been on point. I know it's a team effort, so I don't know for sure like what part is yours, Barnes, and like what somebody added to it. But like, uh, yeah, it's an excellent critique, and y'all should get more money. Like, it's like it's humorous, it's scathing, it's also kind of hopeful. Um,
Hmm.
it's kind
Hmm.
of like
Yes. Speaking of
hopeful
American
part is
Standard,
like, well, what you think you're going for? No, there's a real version of that. um, and I also really liked how it wasn't like Christianity is dumb. It was kind of
right.
like, uh,
Okay, so watch for the Jesus-y parts, folks. That was our buddy Eric. So,
good stuff.
uh, man. So yeah. So what were you saying before we? I,
Me?
yeah, there was something like you'd started to say something. I'm like, hold on, I want to pull up what Eric said.
Oh fuck, I don't know. Man, I had 2 beers earlier, and this is I think 3ish.
Uh,
Uh, and there's the cannabis. So, in addition to us never being monetized in any platform because we use the wrong words all the time, um,
yeah, yeah. Sometimes like wrong words meaning inappropriate. Sometimes wrong words meaning just inaccurate and like grammatically wrong. Yeah,
there are so many retired people who want to be my friend on Facebook all of a sudden, and they're like really into Jesus.
gross. So apparently Barnes wrote the whole thing, but not the Trump guitar part. Well, now I am intrigued. I shall have to check that out.
The Trump guitar part was also good, but it didn't strike me as Barnes.
Hmm.
I was like,
Yeah.
that's clearly that sounds like maybe Cody wrote that because I know Cody is like a mandolin slash guitar slash if it has strings he'll make it funny and play it. Um,
Yeah, it's good quality. Yeah, but yeah, so I don't know. Like, I guess of the topics of like, if it's not true, would you want to know? Like, does it matter if it's true, or like, are we getting the whole like figuring out truth backwards by starting with like what we have faith in, and then making truth fit that? Like, anything on there? But all right, again, I've always loved this quote, especially when I believe there was a God. But yes, if there is a God, beer is proof that God loves us and wants to be happy. I also
it's a
appreciate.
sound argument.
I don't know if it originated with him, but I heard it from James May of Top Gear fame. He said like basically, damn it, now I can't remember the exact words, but he basically said beer was essentially like God basically making up for the fact that he made us conscious. Like that was supposed to be like,
He's like, life is hard, right? Here's beer.
yeah, sort of making up for that. Yeah. All right. Sorry. As you were saying, do you remember this stuff?
um. Oh, I think I remember what I was going to say before.
Oh, cool.
I found it difficult talking to like the guys today. That where I'm like, I can use words that he's used to, and I know what it means for me, and uh, but I know they mean different things to him. But I'm like, if we're trying to use shared language so that like I can communicating in a way that he gets, uh,
Hmm.
because all right, let's say the universe slash everything that exists, if there's more than one universe, I'm just gonna say universe. if we make it a capital U, it includes all of them.
There you
So if God equals universe, then whole idea of like God has a plan. It's like kind of like God has a plan. It's called like science and reactions, and free will is probably an illusion. And like if you light magnesium, it burns super bright until it doesn't, and like that's just how it goes.
go.
Life is probably a lot like that. Free will might be an illusion, probably is. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, there is a plan in quotes. If we're talking plan as a metaphor, like there is a way this goes. Um, and so talking to people and using like I realize like metaphorical language they're using that like they may or may not use it as metaphorical, often like interchanges depending on what topic it is for them. um like I think we're talking about the same thing, we're using different words for it. uh and maybe it would be more productive if we talked about figuring out what it is we're both talking about.
Mm.
um I had this image in my head yesterday. Mount Fuji. Have you ever seen it in a picture?
Seen pictures, yeah.
It's very geometric.
Yeah.
So let's imagine like the sun is above it, but the sun is more definitely more to one side than the other. From both perspectives, the sun is at the same position. The two perspectives being opposite sides of Mount Fuji or giant pointy mountain.
Yeah.
Um, and both sides see the sun in the same like space of the sky. And they can talk to each other, we'll say on a phone or magic or something. And like one is like, yeah, I see, they're describing what they see from their perspective. They're like, yeah, the sun's right there in the sky. And the other side's like, yeah, it's in the same place, but like from the opposite direction. And then and one guy's like, there's this giant dark mountain in front of me. Kind of freaking me out. And the other guy goes, no, there's a giant bright white mountain because the sun is casting a shadow on the other side. And so they're describing the same thing. Like there are components like the sun and the sky, like common reference points where it looks the same to both of them, but they're seeing the one thing as opposites. So I kind of feel like atheists and theists, or people who believe in gods or God, I feel like we're describing the same thing, and I don't know which one of us. I think our side's probably more right, but like I really don't know which side's more right. But I know that we're both not completely right. Um,
Yeah.
like humans aren't that creative. We reorganize information that existed before and come up with something new in quotes. Uh, so like God as a concept is already in the machine somewhere. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had that idea. Yeah, Elephant in the Dark. I kind of like that. But like it's so well known that Christians here, like there's heaven forbid you say Asian guys, they like blind, like for some reason the version I heard was a blind Asian guys talking to an elephant, not talking to an elephant, touching an elephant.
Yeah. Yeah. Say it's like a wall. No, it's like a rope. Yeah. Yeah. And all that. Yeah.
And all we have is our own perspective. Even a shared perspective is just an intelligent ape perspective.
Yeah.
So like our perspective can't be an accurate picture of the whole because we can't see all of it.
Right. Yeah, it can only be like Rumi. Yes.
I want to read more of Rumi. It's very thought provoking. He had a religion. I forget which one it is, Muslim or Hindu, I think, but he he was really processing it via like poetry.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess. Sorry.
I'll allow it.
Thank you. Um, thank you, mute button. But yeah, so I guess I was about to say my issue with like illustrations like that. It's not really my issue with the illustration, more my issue with like how people take it. So I guess my problem is when people take illustrations like, the blind men feeling different parts of the elephant, or what you were saying, like the people looking at the mountain from different angles, whether it's in light or in shadow. Because to like with people saying, well, when people take the whole like, well, I have my truth, you have your truth, like maybe like a little too far, like actually talking about them as if they are like actually separate truths. Because it to
Yeah,
me,
that's
it's
a problem.
like I think as long as you recognize that your perspective is just one piece of a bigger picture, it's not like both of your pictures are the true picture. It's
Right.
like recognize because like it's not like the person like the blind man who was just feeling like I think it was like the elephant's like nose who said it was like a rope or something. It's not like they are right. It's like no, the elephant is a rope. It's like that's not that's not true. His experience of the elephant at that time was like the experience of a rope, but it's not correct for but I think a lot of people feel like, well, my perspective that so that's what I can say is reality. It's like yes and no. Like you like it's just not true to say an elephant is a rope because it's not. But even though its trunk
Well,
might be,
yeah, it's like
yeah,
a rope. And maybe that's the
yeah.
point too of like any language about God is only going to be like God is like this. Because
Mhm,
really is the concept of like describing the Tao is if you can
mhm,
name the Tao, it's not the Tao. Like if you can
yeah,
name God as not God, um,
mhm,
not all of God, or such a limited portion that it doesn't make any
mhm,
sense.
right. Yeah. So as Barnes said, yeah, I feel a rope is different than this is a rope. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
that's
sure. Yeah,
exactly like that phrase.
yeah,
Your map is not the territory.
yeah. Very, very good point. Yeah. So I guess so. The way I would describe like the two angles of the mountain, I guess it's only inaccurate to say the mountain is only in shadow or the mountain is only in sunlight because the reality is the mountain is sitting there in one spot, the sun is here, part of the mountain is in shadow, part of the mountain is in sunlight. That
Right, but if
is
you're talking like subjective and objective perspectives.
mhm,
So the
right,
subjective perspective is like the mountain is only one or the other from that perspective. Um,
right. But
if you
I
can
think it's
if you
yeah,
can
sorry,
conceive
go ahead.
of at least a bigger subjective perspective, that's when you're like, oh, two things can be true.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
if you start to be
I guess
like subjective perspective is objective and you confuse it
yeah.
and
Yeah, but I guess the way I look at it is it's not even that two things are true. It's like there just is the one truth of the sun is over here and the light is hitting the mountain in this way.
right, but then
Like
it's
yeah.
also true that from one perspective it's dark and the other one that it's in sunlight.
Right.
So
Yeah. But
like
again, this is just like the way my mind works. But I guess in my mind, like that is just part of the one truth of the sun is hitting the mountain this way. So
but
all these other
what's the
things are,
bigger
yeah.
perspective? If the bigger perspective is that like what the whole concept of light and the sun and the mountain that this is all like a projection as filtered through a human brain
Yeah.
and the truth is that like this is the universe math playing out and our filter makes it look like things.
Right. Yeah. But then you could also look at it the perspective of it depends on like talk about bigger picture. It depends on how much you're zooming in or how much you're zooming out. Because like if you're zooming out, it's just like, well, here's a galaxy with some glowing balls of gas with some rocks floating around. It's like you don't even have a concept of any mountains because you're zoomed so far out. Or if you zoom so far in, it's like all you can see are like atoms and molecules. You're like, what's a mountain? This is just
Right,
like
so
a
like
picture
which
I'm
one is
interacting
true?
with. So
Well, they
so
both
well,
are
for me,
and the
like I
bigger
think
picture is.
Yeah, so I think so for me, I think another problem with like trying to use these different perspectives to form reality is like it's like you're trying to frame reality, but you're privileging human perspective. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's so that's I guess the other problem is just not is when people don't realize how limited like even if you had the perspective of all the humans in the entire world right now, that is still a very limited perspective, like cosmologically or universally or whatever, or the other animals or whatever. Um, so yeah, I think again, this is also like my issue with the people who talk about like supernatural and natural, and this like they put this like arbitrary dividing line, which again I don't know if they necessarily put in these words, but it seems like the way they express it is like, well, anything beyond human understanding that's got to be supernatural, as if like us humans like we're so special that the limit of our cognition is some sort of special border between natural and supernatural, which
Right. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
We're clearly the highest reachable point.
Right, and that's this is another one of my
It's like,
problems
yeah,
with
apes
it's
would
not
think that.
right, and that's just like one of my problems with not just Christianity but like so many other religions that basically try to privilege humans, like it's trying to make us special in any way. It's like, I mean, yeah, sure, we think we're special because of course we do, we're human,
I
but
think that's why circumcision happened in the first place, is because we had to set ourselves apart from the other animals. It's like, well, we
well,
don't have
but it was
a
also
flesh
like
turtleneck. The only animals have that.
no, but it was also a way to separate ourselves from other humans because like that's how you knew like you were Jewish, like and not
God,
you know
well, God's chosen
Canaanite
race
or
kind of sounds like a
yeah,
master race. Oh,
right.
just
Oh, I know.
saying.
Yeah. So yeah. So another, as Barnes says, another problem is that we humans have a hard time with the nuance as opposed to simplicity, along with allowing our perspective to widen to include things that we don't experience. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. That's why, like I said, like when it comes to like your experience versus my experience, it's not like my experience discredits yours. I mean, your experience is what it is what it is. Mine is what it is.
I think
But
one of
yes.
the core
So,
things about like the development of life on Earth is like the ones and zeros kind of thing. Like there was like the first awareness level is probably like me, not me. Um, and
hmm,
I think life on Earth just has to see things as a dualism to really grasp it.
hmm,
Like this compared to its opposite, like a one and a zero.
hmm.
Uh, Otherwise, it like we can't get to the more like three dimensional or fourth dimensional kind of understanding of things until we go through the two dimensional black and white thing
Hmm.
first.
Right. Sorry, just reading another comment from Barnes here. Yeah, so we think we're special, but I think we are special because we have the ability to think of ourselves as special or not.
At
So
the
yeah,
very
true enough.
least, like part of the universe sprouted a localized awareness. And so that it's like that's super weird.
Yeah, but again, like I guess it also depends on like what sort of like unique aspects we value more. I mean, because you
True.
could say, because like okay, so we are able to think of ourselves as special, but we can't photosynthesize. Like both are unique aspects of different organisms, but we privilege one over the other and say, well, this is more special than like basically we say consciousness is more special than photosynthesis. Well, like of course it is to us, but
Well, plants have.
overall,
We're
is it?
finding out plants have an awareness level. Uh, like they might have feelings as a plant has feelings. Like there's when a good thing is happening, there's a good chemical that is released in the plant,
Hmm.
which
Yeah,
is it's okay. Here's something I don't know where else it would fit in. I was
that's
listening to
what she said.
something earlier today. Oh, and sad. Or is it good? It depends. What end of the spectrum is this thing that is trying to fit, and is it connected to a person? Um, Mitochondria. Okay, you know how like mitochondria were a bacteria that cells absorbed. It sounds more like um, Okay, so there was a single protocell, not really a cell yet, as we understand it. It was called archaea, and there was the
Mhm.
bacteria that became mitochondria. It seems like the mitochondria kind of invaded archaea, and then turned archaea into a vehicle slash life support system. And so it
Hmm.
really looks like people are a vehicle and life support system for mitochondria. They talk to each other. Um, they convey almost like feelings to one another. They're what determines what a stem cell will become. Um,
Hmm.
it's yeah, it's like you're only as good as your mitochondria,
Hmm.
and they might be
That is a
driving everything. This little tiny computer thing that's a bacteria.
that is an interesting way to look at it. But also, just real quick, Barnes says special does not necessarily mean better than. To be clear, yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
they got you there. Yeah, but yeah. So am I just like just like as like what like C.S. Lewis would like say like it's like you don't have a soul, you are a soul, like just having a like physical experience, or are we? Maybe it's like we are mitochondria having a human body experience. Huh.
Exactly. Like they can influence our emotions. It's and then you look at a picture of it and you're like, it's like a squiggly thing inside a squiggly thing that's a capsule. Like and it's doing
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like
So
we don't
back to your
understand shit. Like,
right, but the mitochondria do. Uh, but back to what you were saying about how we're kind of discovering how like maybe plants are like have feelings or emotions or whatever. Because I remember seeing something about like the way, I mean, and this is just and part of me wonder if this is just like the way we perceive it. So these are like the words and language we attach to it. Because they said like basically there was this plant that they discovered. The way they would word is like basically it could tell when it was being eaten by like a bug or whatever, and it
yeah.
would basically experience like stress and start like releasing all these things that I don't even remember what all it was. But part of me is wondering is like, okay, is this a matter of okay, now we're like elevating plants like up to our level? I mean, again, not trying to view as a hierarchy, but more like closer to us, whether it's like
Or
laterally
bringing us
or
down to them
yeah,
with our
yeah.
words.
That's what I was going to say. To me, what that because like in the plant, it's like that seemed like basically just like a purely chemical reaction. It's like, okay, when this thing's happening to these cells and parts, it causes this reaction from another part of the plant. So I'm like, so is all these things that we think are like so special about like our emotions and thoughts, like, is it all really just like physical processes going on that again, because we're human, we think are special or
I
unique or whatever. But
I wonder
yeah,
if on our level of perception, if all that stuff playing out, it creates a narrative, and like there are just sciency things happening, and depending on your perspective, there's a narrative about the science that's happening, and um, things like even like geopolitics stuff, and where it's like, oh, the good guys and the bad guys, and depending what side you're on, one is the other, and it's like, is it all just particles doing things? And if that's the case, then like our story about what's happening is a narrative, and this whole idea of good guys, bad guys is nonsense because
yeah.
everybody's
Are we?
just trying to act in their own best interest.
Yeah.
And like, could we really do anything else? That's how we evolved to this point.
Yeah, are we
um,
just molecules in motion?
and then like the understanding that like wouldn't it be a much better experience of life to have that understanding and that like yeah, this side is going to do that thing, and like this side is going to do that thing, and like it's going to play out this way, and and it's going to be bad for one side and probably better for the other,
Hmm.
and to lose the good guy, bad guy, and just this is just people being
Yeah.
what they think is best for them. Like
Yeah.
stories make more sense with that, and we can't seem to interact with it any other way. Like
Mhm.
everybody has their narrative about what's happening.
Right. Yeah, and it changes between like whether like the focus of the narrative is you or another person. Because I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
it's kind of a trope. It's like whenever someone else does something that's like viewed as like a bad behavior, like you're like, well, there's no excuse for that. They're just a bad person. But of course, when you do that very same behavior, oh, there's all kinds of explanations, like and excuses and reasons. Like, well, I'm not really meaning that. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah. So
you start to explain their words to them.
yeah, or it's just like, well, when this person does such and such a thing, it's because they're an asshole. But when I do it, well, it's because I was having a hard day, or I just wasn't understanding the
Yeah,
situation. Or
I remember
yeah,
from psychology
hmm
that's called the fundamental attribution error, and
yeah,
it's something that people automatically do. Do you remember that?
I've heard of it. Yeah,
Yeah, or somebody does something and you attribute it to their character instead of
hmm
other causes,
right.
and it's something
Yeah,
all people do, and we kind of have to learn that like we're
yeah,
doing that, and it's
yeah.
not helping.
So when yeah, so when someone else does it, it's because of their character. But when we do that, it's because of
Hmm.
circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah, the assumption everyone else is probably bad. However, I am better.
Hmm.
But that's how something will survive. I mean, the
Yep.
trusting ones are going to die. And then if you get like bacteria, or the
hmm
first cells, and the ones that are a little standoffish, they're at least going to survive.
Yep. Even the cells know to be skeptical.
Yeah, it's a good place to be. I mean, that's how you join a cult accidentally.
Right? Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard looking at you. No, that wasn't an accident. Her family did that on purpose.
I totally know what you're talking about, and that's fine. So you don't need to.
Uh,
I'll look it up later.
uh, her
Um,
her family's in a cult. It's like a yoga Hindu adjacent kind of cult. That's where all the Muslim hating, gay hating stuff comes from.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
she's like, wars are bad, except if it's killing Muslims. It's like, wow, that's something.
Well, anyway. Um, so yeah. So anything else you want to touch on those like points of like talk about knowledge about like do you want to know if your beliefs are wrong? Does it matter if your beliefs are wrong?
I think it doesn't matter for people until their beliefs become painful. Because I don't think you, for whatever reason, like cognitive dissonance that you become aware of, or something happens in a religious environment where you're like, that is not a thing here. I thought. Um, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
I lost your train of thought too.
Damn it.
Uh,
Um, oh no, and this even works for politics stuff where it's like facts don't matter until someone's beliefs about what's happening in the country are painful to have. Like there's
mm,
no reason
yeah.
to question it. It's kind of an evolutionary thing. Um, and I don't think people are ready to change their minds until something it bothers them about believing it. And like we can kind of give somebody reasons or chip away at that a little bit. Um, but when they have an epiphany, it's probably not when they're talking to us
Mm, true enough.
because they're going to have that after something we say simmers or eats away at them.
Mm, indeed. Well, let's see. Where's
But it also worked that way when we were trying to evangelize to people. That's how we looked at it. So who the fuck knows?
Yeah. Yeah. So Barnes, or anyone else who might be watching, I just put a link out in the chat. So if anyone wants to click on that to join in, Barnes apparently has things to say. Good thing. But yeah, like, so my mind has gone back to like that example you were talking about a while ago, like certain, like with certain things, like whether you believe it's like, if what you believe, like, is it true or not, does it really matter? Barnes, how's it going, buddy?
I heard that blip, but it sounded like it was over here, like in the room with me. And so it's like,
That's because I am in the room with you, Matt.
I'm in the room with you too.
Ju-
It's all
just-
connected. There's no difference.
Just like God's in the room with you.
I'm not wearing pants. No, I am.
It's okay. God doesn't care about your dick.
This is
Aw.
bigger.
That's the truth I wanted to get out.
Who says you? I like to think that God does care about my dick very much. Thank you.
Mhm. I mean, if you believe in the whole circumcision thing, then maybe. But
Apparently, just the tip he cares about.
yeah, that's the thing. But no,
So you have
sorry to
answers.
invade. No, I don't have answers for you. I have a thought.
Thoughts are good.
Well, it's not an invasion when I put out a link, say, "Hey Barnes, click this." So
Yes, but I essentially asked.
well, hey, that's fine. It's
Fair.
good.
No, I kind of agree with Matt. Is more along the lines of the question: does truth matter? The answer is yes and no at the same time, because it all is about kind of like the Hippocratic Oath, right? First rule is do no harm.
Mhm.
If the lie I believe in is harmless, who gives a shit? It doesn't even harm me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But if there's but if it does harm to others and to a self, then there should be an account. In terms of the whole God not God question, currently in my thought and in my journey, the question, does God exist? Does Jesus exist? To me, the answer is it doesn't matter. Just because, as you two both know, because you've actually read the Bible and understand the nuance in it, and understand that it is a compilation of different books by different people, and et cetera, et cetera. You understand that, I think you can, even though you don't share in it, you can at least understand my perspective of whether Jesus existed or not. The stuff he taught makes sense to me and makes sense to live a life that is good for myself and good for those around me. And everything else is everything else.
Yeah. So if that's the way it actually, to borrow the word, like manifests, in your life, that it's like bringing good things, then yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you know, it's not easy. It's not necessarily a good thing. It just is, right? Like with God, it is or it isn't. It's not necessarily if I'm in this for altruism, if I'm in this for a quid pro quo or anything like that, I am definitely going to be disappointed every time.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean.
That's not
Like
how
specifically
anything
talk.
works.
Yeah.
Specifically, like referring to like the teachings of Jesus, like you say, like if that's something you want to, adopt into your life, because then I guess to me that says was because like using those things in your life is like beneficial.
Well, yeah, but
I guess that's what I meant by like working.
The thing is I get what you're saying. But the thing is like if you take a look at the bare bones of the teachings, it's nothing. At least the big ones are kind of a universal truth in terms of ensuring that there is less bloodshed and harm to each other for humanity, and it's not necessarily a Christ original idea. There are other
Right.
versions of
Yeah.
faith, and also just regular ass people. They're like, yeah, healing the sick sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, you're like killing kids sounds
Yeah.
bad.
Yes, yeah. You know, that type of thing.
certainly-
So,
I certainly appreciate the healing of the sick myself. That's
well, yeah, exactly. You're welcome, by the way.
You don't know how many people have probably had that kind of attitude when they've talked.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
They just didn't
Oh
say
man,
that.
I prayed so much for Tommy, and he doesn't appreciate it.
Like, this is
No,
proof
I
God
was
loves you.
okay. My mind went more to like the.
I could have prayed for. I could have prayed for peace on earth. I could have prayed for starving children in Africa. No, I chose my prayer time for Tommy.
Okay, where
I only
my
have 30 minutes, and I can only allot a certain amount of time for prayer.
Yeah,
And I wasted it praying that
any
Tommy
good
could be
person-
alive.
okay,
any
so
actually
here's
good person would be like, okay, like if I can make something happen, like peace in the universe, like I don't know, and I got one wish, like I wouldn't, if it was me, I wouldn't want somebody to use that on me. I would say no, make peace everywhere. What the hell?
But real quick, I need to point out. So where my brain went when Barnes was asking me to thank him for it, it went back to like the whole C-Lab 2021. It's like, oh, Barnes, like he ate all the effing Tommy cancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, is God just in like
Delicious.
an intergalactic like chugging contest? He's just chugging cancer.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
in all seriousness, yeah, that's that's the deal, at least from my end, and the fact that I don't know, my belief in God, I will never say is scientific. I can't prove it, and science, you know, as of right now, can't 100% disprove it because of the various issues of, well, what about in terms of the whole domino effect of everything, and there is a whataboutism stuck in place. But the issue, but yeah, I don't know. I think that if you are a proper, not to get into what is a Christian and what is not, I think the proper stance is to just, whatever your stance is, that is what it is. But, you know, we're taught to just perform it, not force it on anybody. And to, you know, probably the wisest words that I've heard from a preacher was, and I'm sure you've heard a version of this in your upbringings. It's, yeah, always preach the gospel, but you don't have to use words.
Yeah, I think it was St. Francis who first said that. Yeah,
Something like that. And you know, there's something to be said about that. And,
There is. And for some
Yeah.
reason, most people, not you, but a lot of people who have said that
I
to
know.
me have already said too many words to me.
No, no. My method is shut the fuck up and just be your friend, for God's sakes, because I love you, and that's it.
hmm
Everything else, you know, that's between you and the God. That's between you and the God that does or does not exist. Everything else is everything else.
yeah.
And I
what's
think
your
we can
angle with
only-
that, though? Just wanting to be my friend. Come on, who does that?
Yeah.
That sounds like just a support group, Tommy.
Yeah. It just sounds like yeah.
That's what a Christian small group said to us.
It's almost as if I had no ulterior motive at all, and I just am with the people that I am with because I love them, and
Well, that
No.
seems suspect.
moved on from that. Yeah.
Like that can't possibly be true.
I suspiciously love you too, buddy. So
It's hilarious to me because a friend of mine
keep
early
talking.
on in our
I just need to pee. I'll be right back.
that's fine. Early on in this person in my friendship with this person, like she said, "All right, man, what's your deal?"
I like that question.
Like, okay, what do you mean? It's like you're just nice to me. Like trying to hit on me? What's happening here? And I'm like, what do you want?
You're like, do you want me to hit on you? I could.
I'm like, that's not really what I was going for.
Yeah.
I I think you're an intriguing person, and you're a person of worth.
Yeah, you're
And I'm not going to get into details, but a shitty thing was happening to her, and I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry that things suck."
Yeah.
And I was actively, helping her out along with some of her other mutual friends. And she's like, "Well, what?" But I didn't know her too terribly well. And like, I don't know. Someone needed to help, and I helped them.
Yeah.
And it sucks that her reaction is totally understandable, but at the same time, it sucks that we're in a place in which that's the understandable initial reaction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle. I don't know if I like that.
You're surrounded.
Also, I think there's
Oh,
something
yeah.
in there about like penises typically have an alternate motive.
Yeah, that's true.
Like
In terms of it,
like the Harry Met Sally, like can men and women be friends? It's like not often.
I think that they definitely can, but we have been raised and trained to
That's what I mean.
not, and we're educated, and we've been educated otherwise.
Yeah, I think saying they can't be friends is almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing. Like if you keep
Bingo.
saying, yeah,
it's like not with how like the opposite sex has just been so automatically sexualized.
Bingo.
Like they're yeah.
Oh, we've sexualized their breasts. We've mind you when we
because we hit them.
We came.
Like they weren't allowed to be seen, so we wanted to see him.
Yeah.
It's kind of our fault.
Well, there's well, that's what I'm saying. Is it's a comedy. There's so many different kind. Like by forbidding them, we have further sexualized them, right? And on top of that, and it's the same with like, growing up in school, dress codes and stuff. Like, a skirt can only go so high, and so on and so much. Because
Catholic school lately, like those skirts are underwear length.
I meant us growing up,
right.
but you get what I'm saying. And on top of that, I think you've been watching too many other photos and other things of the popular Catholic schoolgirl trope as opposed to actual Catholic schoolgirls. At least I would hope.
Oh no, there's
I will say the
Mount Thunder Dame, which I drove past for work pretty often, not anymore. No, like they're shorter than like mid thigh for sure.
Okay, well, point is they should be able to wear whatever the hell we want, but we have.
Oh, I agree.
But we have made it forbidden because of like, God damn it, you're making the boys horny. Stop it.
Yeah, it's your fault.
That's your fault.
Yeah, that's exactly. So one of my favorite like memes, cartoons I ever saw. Like there was this lady like cartoon, like she was wearing like what most would maybe consider like kind of revealing outfits. So there was a guy standing next to her, said, "Wear more decent clothes." And like the next panel was like her like putting her finger like up on his mouth like to shut him up, and she says, "Have more decent thoughts."
Like, that's true.
Yep. So
I would love it if it was wear more decent clothes, and then he proceeded to offer her a wardrobe of different outfits or something.
Yeah,
It's
you
like,
gotta
these
be-
are
you gotta
much
be
higher
pretty
quality.
limited about it.
Like these are much higher quality material.
It's the materials. Like this polyurethane, you can't breathe in this.
Yeah, here.
This wicked.
I'm just
much
trying
more
to get
breathable.
oxygen to your skin.
Yeah.
Or here's some like performance moisture wicking material.
Yeah, exactly. This is moisture wicking material.
Yeah. So I had another thought.
Or
on
was
the
just
whole, like,
or was just addressing her socks and her socks only. It was just-
yeah, it's like it's way too many holes. You need to darn those darn things.
Ah.
So I had another thought about the whole like knowledge, truth, beliefs thing. About like the value of, well, basically whether or not there is more value in believing things that are true or not. Because like one of the examples that Matt used, like probably a couple hours ago now, the whole like believing in like the current scientific theories of like evolution, like ancient age of the earth, the universe itself being like however many billions of years old. And because like this is something like the fundamentalist Christians who like say, well, they just believe in like young earth creationism, and say, well, like people say, well, does it really matter like how old I think the earth is or whether I think evolution happens or not? And like it's one of the things, like on its face, like you might not think so, but I think and this is maybe why I kind of lean more towards trying to make my beliefs as close as I can to like to what's actually true, or what we can know to be true anyway, is because of all the like unseen consequences. So for instance, like just with the theory of evolution and how important that has been to like pretty much every branch of biology and medicine and our understanding, like, so someone might say, well, it doesn't harm anything if we don't believe in evolution. But then there's like all those unseen, like, okay, but then there's all the advancements that we don't make if we don't believe in that.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I think I simplified my stance more than I should have in terms of truth doesn't matter. I mean, I
wasn't referring to what you said.
No. I know, but I want to. I'm very tired, as are you. So maybe my thoughts are jumble bumbled.
Thanks for noticing.
But to your point, I think and this is where I kind of fight back just a little bit on your whole fudging God into the narrative, the whole, well, I wonder what Zeus is doing type thing, which not a bad thought or idea, but I think that the one truth that is out there that we need to keep searching for truth, and that's going to be for probably humanity long process, and that when we to your point about evolution, we didn't just stop at be like, well, it was just evolution and all that. We just looked further into evolution, and thus we are able to discover even more and discover more and discover more, and we're able to alter our thoughts and refine the truth that we have found over and over again, which is what science is, and to a certain extent, isn't that what what theologians are essentially doing? Is the more truth that is discovered, they are uncovering more of what God is not rather than what God is.
It depends on,
and maybe they'll either reach to a conclusion that God is not a single entity, but could be just a feeling. God could just be mitochondria. God could just could be all these different things.
Could be midichlorians.
It's just they could be midichlorians. But you get what I'm saying is that they're not, that it's not necessary. I can understand the perspective of, well, they're trying to fudge God into whatever narrative they have, but maybe from a more, maybe this is naivete, or I would like to say more positive outlook on my end. It's more along the lines of they are better understanding what God is by finding out more and more what God is not over time.
Right.
And then it could lead to, and then in the end, both sides of the God, not God coin are working their way from different points into the same conclusion, much like the whole side of the mountain.
Okay. I get what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. I guess my perspective on that is, um, I guess is very much my perspective. So it's like a very like narrow, like myopic, if you want to say like, so I get my perspective on that is like, okay, yes. Like as far as like the theologians out there who are trying to, if you will, like whittle the ideas of God down until they get to like the proper image or like I said, like you said, probably never actually arriving at the proper image, but getting closer or like on the spectrum or continuum or whatever it is. So I guess just I'm I guess my perspective, like, yeah, people who like are undertaking that endeavor, like, yes, definitely. Like if people can figure out more, like if there is a God for one, but then what is he like you said, by figuring out more, like, hey, well, he's definitely not this, so that can get you closer to like what he actually is. So I guess just from my perspective, I'm just taking this is kind of how I am like with like any kind of field where I have like zero expertise, just kind of leaving it up to the experts. Like, so it's like with medicine, like I'd be like, okay, the people who are trying to figure it out, like, okay, go at it. I'm going to stay over here. You let me know what you figure out, kind of thing. So that's where I am, like with the whole like God question. Like from my perspective, I don't really see him anywhere. But for the people who are actually like dedicating their lives to figuring out, I'm like, okay, cool. If you guys figure something out, let me know. Until then, I'll just be over here being me.
Right.
That makes sense.
I'll say I think it would be for. So I think you're right, Barnes, about how people are kind of honing their view of God. I think what from my perspective, what I think would be better is if the people were aware they were doing that, because then there's more processing, more questioning that can be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm afraid, like some of the, I guess my fear is like because some of the louder voices in that camp are the ones who are saying like more like, no, there absolutely is a God, and that's what we're. As soon as I started to say all these sentences, like my brain just like completely exploded into all the directions it's trying to go at once. So I guess it's more like, yeah, like you said, Matt, like the people who are not really understanding exactly what it is they're doing, they're just
right, and they are loud, but
trying to be more fundamentalist about what they're doing. Yeah, but for the people for whom it is like an actual like honest endeavor, like no, we're going into this like not trying to prove a certain thing about God, but what are we actually finding out, and then just basing what we believe about him on what we find, not starting with our presuppositions and having that shape whatever we find.
Right, but the thing I'm fighting back about is that is more along the lines of your initial, and I'm sure, again, I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire or anything because we're all figuring things out together. But
Yeah,
your initial I'm trying to find the right word, proposal, accusation, whatever you want to call it, was more in the, well, that's what they're all doing. And my thing is like, well, your problem is with loud people, not with actual Christians. Or people that believe in a thing, because I can easily say the same thing about people that are like, Pluto's still a fucking planet, god damn it, or people that are like, people like, no, my science and research told me ivermectin will help with the COVID vaccine.
It'll help a horse through things.
You know, so it's more of those loud people with misunderstandings of what the thing what the thing is, rather than the thing itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I guess my pushback to that pushback would be when you talk about like, I don't remember what exactly your phrasing was, but like real Christianity or true Christianity versus like the loud voices.
I'm not talking Christianity. I'm talking just God, not God argument in general.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess like from my perspective, like as an outsider, as it were, like,
right.
I can't tell what the real any of it is, because there's so many like differing like opinions on whether it's like different opinions on what God is or different opinions on what Christianity is. And this is like my problem. Like anytime I say any problem and I know, like you said, that you're not talking about specifically Christianity, but just by way of example, it's like anytime I express an issue that I have with Christianity, like almost invariably there would be like so many people tell me, well, that's not what real Christianity is. And like, so it's like,
No. The sad part is that is what you're talking about is real Christianity. It all is. The warts, the good stuff, the bad stuff, that is Christianity. Because
right,
it's
so
a system.
Yeah, or like the way I like to put it, you ask 10 Christians what is Christianity, you get 30 different answers. But so I mean, if that's what it's supposed to be like, I don't know, but yeah, so sometimes I'm almost like I said, with the whole like people trying to figure out like what God is or what God is not, and like trying to like figure out that way. I'm just like, all right, as soon as you folks figure it out, like what it actually is, let me know.
Oh yeah.
I'm happy to leave it up to them, but yeah.
So I thought of something earlier when you were talking about kind of honing picture of God and like the value of or not of kind of like changing a perspective of God based on science. So I think if we do that, honestly, and we're like, okay, science says this thing about God isn't true, so God, if there is a God, is more like this. I think we would get to a point where whatever God is, if there's one, tuning it the concept of that, tuning it based on science will get us closer to the God that is probable.
Yeah,
I think there's value in that, but I think like to use it to really like get to the heart of it, like all major religions would have to do that, so we get like all the human perspectives on narrowing it down. And even if there isn't a God, the concept of a God we would have would be like a better metaphor for reality, at the very least. That's just not a thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, because this is part of my problem with the way more like fundamentalist Christians who are, whether they admit it or not, like just become just very like anti-science, because like my thing was like, even like when I was a believer, it's like, okay, if there is a God and he wants us to get to know him, and he's the one who gave us our minds, and made our minds curious and wanting to explore the natural world through science, the natural world that he made, then science should be one of the best ways to get closer to this God. Like if he is like the way they say, like if he wants to get to know us and he gave us our mind, like I said, gave us our minds and the curiosities, like then examining the world, like the way I used to put it, it's like nature should be more scripture than the Bible. Like if this God is,
that's
like,
what Francis of Assisi said too.
Yeah. So
and even Jesus said, "You will do things greater than me, or greater than this."
Yeah.
Well, Brian Tillman had a thing
which
about
is what I think scientific discovery is.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a cool way to look at it. Yeah.
Our old church pastor had a thing. He's like, "That's why we're doing all this stuff that Jesus didn't do," and
it's like, yeah, but you're asking for a lot more money than Jesus did.
Yeah.
As in like 0 recorded times Jesus did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
There were only 2 things Jesus was pissed at: the church becoming a marketplace and a goddamn fig tree.
It's like something's lost in translation there.
No, and it literally became a goddamn fig tree because
exactly. He's like, I wanted a fig, and he's like, "Fuck you, tree." Yeah.
And here's the thing, like,
so
it
Barnes,
wasn't the time of year for figs
Barnes
to be
was
on.
not using profanity. He was being biblically accurate. That was
That was being biblically accurate.
big trick.
But yeah, I was using God's name. God, the term in English that he was definitely known as during the time at which God revealed themselves to be. Not himself.
Unless
Not
like
himself, because we created a him because of the patriarchal societies we had and the norms of the times.
Yeah. And so for anyone out there who's disagreeing with Barnes, that means you're saying that Jesus was God. And I have you know that now that it's Christmas time, Santa Claus has words / a fist for your face, if that's what you're trying to say.
Wait, what?
I didn't
like at the
follow.
Council of Nicaea, like Saint Nicholas, like literally punched a dude for saying that Jesus.
Oh,
was
that is a
God.
deep cut.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah, because that was because the Council of Nicaea, like everyone, like no, it was not like Dan Brown or whoever else says, like that was not how the canon was put together. That was actually the big thing at the Council of Nicaea was like, was Jesus God? Was he anointed by God? Like I guess actual Saint Nicholas, like someone was trying to say, oh, Jesus wasn't actually God, and he just punched him. So
America.
And they said, "What is America?" And he's like, "It'll make sense thousands from years from now."
You'll hate it. You'll love it. It'll be a thing.
It's like it's this. Yeah. So,
he punched him.
Yeah, that's
I
where
forgot, and I knew that.
And that's why the day after Christmas is Boxing Day.
It all makes sense now. Yeah.
St. Nicholas just kept punching people.
I love Christmas time after Christmas is over. And I think it's my demand avoidance thing where I'm like, I gotta do the things before a day. And like, if you don't do it soon enough, then you should feel bad. And
yeah, see,
then after Christmas, I'm like, leave our tree up for like a month.
Yeah, see, that's why as an adult, Thanksgiving has become my favorite holiday.
Yeah,
because for me, it's like all the best parts of Christmas, but like none of the responsibilities. It's literally just go to someone's house, eat a bunch of food, and watch football and drink. That's
unless it is at your house, though.
Well, but that's the key. It's never at my house.
All right. That's a smart play.
It's kind of it is low pressure. You can overeat and overdrink. No
I'm over Thanksgiving. I can't. I mean, I celebrate it because of FOMO, but the food is not good, guys. It just is not.
Well, see, here's the thing. Like, I remember it was during 2020, so the COVID year. So, like that year, like we just like we stayed at our own homes. We just like FaceTimed with family, like over the meal. It was great. But I was like, so when it was like just me and my family at the time, we're all just like, you know what? None of us really like turkey. I'm just gonna grill steak.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. I do like. I do.
The whole pilgrim thing is made up anyway. So
all right, that's not what I do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So make up your own shit. Do it.
I do think the turkey is worth it for the gravy. And if you've ever, like stuffing that's been in the bird in the oven.
Oh, when it's actually stuffing and not just
is
called stuffing. Yeah,
delicious.
Or there were several years where I smoked the turkey. That was delicious.
Matt, I don't know if you know this, but you can make equally as tasty stuffing and gravy without dealing with the absolute bullshit nonsense of cooking a bird at all.
No, you need the bird because when it's inside, you get drippings from the bones, from like the organ like cavity. It's not just gravy.
You can get the drippings from other people. You don't have to do the thing yourself.
Oh, okay.
We'll see if like hopefully Barnes gets this deep cut, but this sounds like a job for the aviary.
Yes, there you go.
Let's see if I can remember. It was a chicken stuffed inside a duck, inside a turkey, inside a goose, inside of an emperor penguin, inside of an ostrich.
You forgot Cornish game hen, but you got the rest.
Cornish game hen. That's in chicken. Okay,
that was the first. That's the first one. But yes,
they're like
you got the rest. I'm impressed.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Tommy
I do remember
bits from like 20 years ago.
I do remember going
Fa-
to a friend invited me over for Christmas. And I'm like, oh, what should I bring? What should I bring for like what kind of wine pairing? Because I can't really cook anything worth a damn. I said, well, what wine should I bring for the meal? He's like, I don't know, whatever the hell goes with Cornish game hen, because that's what we're having. I'm like, okay, red it is, because we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's one thing. Apparently, like with poultry, you're supposed to have white wine, but white wine kind of sucks. So, yeah, red it is.
I think a gently flavored red is fine with chicken.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, give me a good Chianti. I'll have it with anything. I don't really care.
I only know red and white, and I've tried all types of versions of both, and they both taste like either red or white to me. And
I agree.
frankly, they both pair with whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah,
I don't have the
I
palate for
usually
wine.
just I usually just go with beer anyway. So it's like, yeah,
Fair.
Like, I know when like I like
Some of
I
us
like
are
the flavor of wine.
calorie counting, Tommy.
what's that?
Some of us have to calorie count, Tommy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
you were saying, Matt, I cut you off.
I'm protein counting right now because I don't get enough protein, and the calorie counting might be next.
Well, I have the beatus, so
Do you?
yeah.
Is that
So
a new
I
thing?
have to.
Like from since
It's-
like you were in Cincy?
Yeah. It's been the last couple of years and all that. I'm on medication for now. We'll
You used
see.
to make a joke about Wilfred Brimley and the diabetes.
Oh yeah, I still do. It's everyone does.
It was so good.
Yeah. Diabetes. But no, it's
It's like your
Well, the pro-
mustache is funny sounding.
well. The problem is that I've at this point I have type 2, but the thing about diabetes is like there are 9 different versions of type 2. There's the type 2 that's like, okay, you have to be on insulin forever, and then there's stuff like mine in which it's like, don't be fat, stop it.
And you're like,
if you like I did when I was in my mid 30s and stuff, I put my diabetes in remission because I lost some weight, and then I gained some weight back, and now I'm back at type 2. So my hope is that if I make certain changes in goals and all that now, and that was without medication, now I'm on medication that helps regulate, like oral medication that helps regulate glucose. No, I'm not on Ozempic because that's like $1,000 a shot, even with insurance, or Wegovy or anything like that.
I found out. Speaking of wine, apparently red wine lowers blood sugar as well.
Yes, but there are grapes in red wine, and that fucks up the medication that I'm on, so I don't.
Okay.
So
Fair enough.
But the problem is like I when I was marching, for SAG-AFTRA strike and all that.
Yeah.
I would go to the table, and I was like, okay, I gotta go, and all that, and people were offering me like a crustable to eat. I'm like, oh, I shouldn't. I'm diabetic. And they offer me an apple, and I'm like, don't think you really know what really the problem is, because they don't quite understand that sugar is fucking sugar, regardless. So, and carb is a carb for us. I mean, yes, there are healthy carbs and kind of that, but you get to a certain point which it's like, listen, if I'm going to have a carb, it's going to be like the best fucking chocolate I'll ever eat over fruit that I don't like, that is technically better for me, but I'm at a point where all things with carbohydrates are bad. So if I'm going to have a carbohydrate, it's going to be the best fucking carbohydrate I can ever have in order to make my early death worth it.
There you go. Yeah, it's like when I was like still on immunotherapy and I was supposed to like cut my alcohol intake like way down. So like, all right, if I'm going to have a beer, it's going to be like my favorite fucking beer.
Yep.
Because like this is my beer for the week, kind of thing.
And then you found out that like the limit they gave you wasn't actually a thing. It was just kind of like, yeah, we said just don't drink as much.
Well, it was a thing, but it was like when I did have so I was only supposed to have like 2 to 3 a week. So like a good cancer patient, I had 3 to 5. Now,
Yeah.
but like every time I went in, like because it was all about like mainly like when they like drew my blood like for numbers, like okay, how are my kidneys and livers functioning? Like mostly my liver, like how it was functioning, and it was always perfectly fine. But something else that I found out recently. So I'm off the immunotherapy now. Have been for a little over a year, but I still get like the regular like routine like full body PET scans and like brain and like head and neck MRI. But for the PET scan, like they told me, okay, so the day before you got to eat like low carb because like your blood sugar has to be below a certain level and basically the way like because when you get a full body PET scan, I don't know if either of you two are familiar with those much at all. Anyway, so
if you were to ask me, it would sound like you would take your dog to that.
Yeah.
well, apparently I'm the pet.
Ask me in 10 years, I'll probably have had one.
No, but all I know is like first they like inject you with the stuff, and then you just have to sit there for an hour for it to work through your system, and then you do the scan, and I guess it picks up on whatever that stuff's doing in your system. And I confirmed this with my older brother Ed, who both of you know, who
Kills
works
people
as
slowly with radiation.
Yeah, he's an MRI tech, so he also knows some about PET scans. So I asked him if my summation of what the stuff they injected me with is accurate, and he said, "Yeah, that's pretty much it. Basically, radioactive sugar."
Yeah.
So for me, like a person who at the time had but still now is like just making sure you don't still have cancer. And I get like cancer likes to eat sugar, so it's basically we're gonna give you this radioactive sugar and see where in your body something starts eating it or whatever. So
it sounds like a bad plan.
which is why they need to keep like your actual like blood sugar load so it doesn't mess with that. So they tell you, okay, the day before eat low carb. I'm like, okay, so I was like for like the day before just like going like to the extreme, like avoiding like all carbs like whatsoever, and like being like real meticulous about it. So finally, after like about 2 years of getting these things like every 3 to 4 months, I finally just asked that like the PET scan tech, like, so what so like, and my blood sugar was always around like 100, something like that.
That's pretty good.
So I asked the guy, so like what, like when they say low carb, like how low carb, like how low do you need my blood sugar to be? It's like, oh, as long as it's below 200, that's fine. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like,
I could have had so many sweets. My daughter makes sweets.
Well, that's the thing is that they have to go to the utmost extreme, otherwise you can be held liable. It's sort of like when I first diagnosed with diabetes, it's like some doctor was like, well, you just have to replace ice cream with cottage cheese.
Oh, because they're the same. That'll be easy.
Oh, yeah. Or some bullshit like that. But the thing of it is like, man, you can. Here's the thing: eat salad for lunch, and just have 2 slices of pizza. Yeah. You don't need 9.
And the salad does help you not like want to eat so many pizzas.
Well, I mean, it all depends. Yeah. Well, it's just better for you in general. But,
I mean, it
but
fills
that's
you
the
up
thing.
in a way that, yeah.
But that's the thing is that just automatic replacement of that type. And, it's just like, oh, fine, I'll have the sugar-free chocolate pudding instead of the regular shit. That is what it is. But it's more along the lines like because I want to eat Chinese food with my friends on Christmas Eve. Well, I guess I'm adding an extra 30 minutes on the treadmill, or the elliptical stuff.
No,
there's a lot of sugar in all of our food. Here's the problem with RFK Jr. because I know we're on the subject.
Just the one
problem.
There are plenty of problems. I don't want him to be our health czar, but herein lies the issue: is that the worst person makes a good point, which is how he's like, there's so many different food dyes and additives and all this. I'm not going to do an actual impression of him because it's making fun of his physical status.
Also, maybe he deserves it.
Well, all right. In that case, like, there's so many bad things in the food. There's so many chemicals in it. He makes a good point about that, but the problem is that since he's in the pocket of people that still want to make processed foods,
And he also
You know?
works out in blue jeans and hiking shoes.
He also
At
has
the
got a
gym?
dead brain. He also has a dead brain worm in his skull.
It's
Still,
probably
it's
fine.
still there. It is still there. It is still there. They know it is there, and it's dead. It is still there. He did
Well,
not
see, it's
have.
not a problem if
He
it's
did
dead.
not have the corpse of a worm removed from his brain. He still allows it there. He misses it. He wants it there. He wants to keep it there.
Now,
He
please
wants
tell
to
me
keep
it's
it
because
there.
it would be less dangerous to leave it than not. But I'll bet they
Here's
probably
the
recommended
thing,
that it be
Matt.
removed.
Here's the thing, Matt. We don't know. But all I know is this, is that if I had a dead brain parasite in my brain, and it was publicly known, I would have said, doctors have told me to not, that's too big of a risk to to have an operation to remove it. That's what I would say because I'm a smart person.
Right.
RFK Jr. is not a smart person.
Yep.
Therefore, he does not address it. He will address he will address vaccines have a certain enzyme when they haven't had certain enzymes since 2001,
Right.
or
It didn't even do
other
a thing.
enzymes since 1960, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he wants to bring back the measles. And by the way, I hope you all are ready for bird flu because we're going to get COVID part 2 coming up.
There's bird flu in Canada that looks like it might. It's unclear so far, but it has a genetic profile.
It's already here in the United States, and someone has already been diagnosed.
With no animal contact?
I believe so.
Okay.
I don't know about the other
The
one.
last I heard was it was in like Western Canada, and it had the markers that showed that it was ready for human-to-human transfer, but wasn't there yet. And so, which pretty much just means that like, if it figured out how to do that, it's going to do the next thing until it's not good for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but evolution is fake.
Oh, and good news. Masks are illegal in too many places now because
You
hides your
watched
identity.
today some more news, haven't
Yeah.
you?
Because it hides your identity from the police.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the best thing for police is for them to have an easier job to grab people for things.
Yeah. Unless you're part of a certain sector organization,
Yeah,
like the Klan.
right. Special exception for hoods, like legit in the North Carolina.
North
legislation.
Carolina. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Funny thing, we knew a guy from North Carolina, and he didn't understand the things he was saying about the Civil War were racist.
Fun.
And when a black man tried to inform him, he kind of was like, "No, but." In his defense, I think he had some seltzers and/or beer. I'm going to say seltzers because it makes him sound worse. And we were all like, "Dude, I think he might be too drunk to understand what's happening."
I'm a proud white guy ally moment in my life. In college, I was in an African American film class, and I was with, I had some people in my dorm that also went to the class and all that because we didn't care. Let's be honest with ourselves. We didn't care about the actual race thing. It was a class in which we were shown movies and we wanted to watch movies as a class for credit.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I ended up accidentally learning about some things.
My goodness.
Anyway,
Man.
and they were talking about like, well, how and our professor, thank God, was black. If this wasn't Ohio, it could have gone either way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He talked about like how there's certain that what it's like to be black in this country and all that type of stuff. It's like, well, and one friend of mine's like, well, racism is essentially that's not a thing anymore and all that. And he was about to take a shower, and I took a shower caddy. He's like, give me that back. I'm like, no. Okay. And I just handed him the soap. Like but I want the whole thing. All right, fine. Here's the shampoo. but I want to shave and all that. And I'm like, I don't know. You can only shave 3/5 of you. To drive home the point of, no, they didn't get everything back, and they're still working on trying to catch up. And the fact that I watched this video essayist on YouTube. This is my new obsession. Is I don't watch TV as much anymore, just because whatever. I just end up watching video essays on YouTube. That's my bullshit. Yep. That's my bullshit now. Mm-hmm. And one I will recommend is FD Signifier.
Okay.
FD Signifier. He broke down on why Kamala lost, and he said a quote that just rings true: is like, a white man will shit his pants if it means a black man will smell it. I can't. And I'm like, well, historically speaking, that's not incorrect in terms of. It turns out that, if we have universal childcare or better healthcare and all that, and stuff that is for the for welfare state, aka insert people of color here, things that help minorities. Believe it or not, actually helps white people too, especially the ones that are in need. Right. Probably even more so. And anyway,
I think we can't. So the stuff that Israel's doing, they're not doing anything that America didn't do here.
No,
and
still wrong.
No, I agree. My point is, like, I think until Americans really wrestle with and reconcile that, like, we shouldn't be here, but we are, and so, like, we need to reconcile with the descendants of the people who were, and until we really, until we can, like, accept that, like, yeah, we stole a lot of the continent from people who were already here. We're not going to, there's a limit to where we can get with like other prejudice or sexism or because we're still at our core as a culture. It's built on that, like, that colonial what's not us is bad mentality.
Yeah. No, we are 200 years. That's the thing, is like technology and all that aside, in terms of mental mentality, we are at minimum 200 years behind Europe in terms of especially the UK, because we're still figuring things out, and they figured out their whoopsies before we have been. We're kind of like teenagers in this as a country, in that, and them over there, while imperfect, please don't get me wrong, and I'm speaking in generalities, they're kind of just saying, oh man, back when we were their age, about some stuff.
I feel like we're moving forward faster than a lot of our culture can tolerate.
Because we had to, and because we are.
That's where we're going.
We also have more culture than anything else, because the original culture, in quotes, is indigenous folks, and indigenous folks have cultures within cultures within cultures too. Yeah. It's all kind of a big, they are not a monolith either. And because of the promise, the American promise, whether you believe in it or not, and all that, whatever, the fact is that it's going away, but it existed. Whether or not you believe in the promise had been said.
Yeah, but it's built on extracting wealth from everywhere else.
Oh yeah, no,
that too.
I'm not disagreeing, but that's how we got this cultural pot, is because so many other people heard of this rumor of starting over. They're like, well, fuck, I'm going to be a farmer in Ireland the rest of my life, or I'm going to be over here, and
I'm
then
gonna drink in New York.
maybe I won't, and maybe I won't be. Or, well, I'm just going to be a peasant in China, but I hear there might be gold, there might be some other opportunity to be in a better station in life. So on this other place,
They'll pay
sure,
you better
I
to
will
treat
get.
you
I will
like
get.
shit.
They will treat. But yeah, you also have to understand it was for a good chunk of it. It was like, well, fuck. I'm either going to be low and treated like shit where I'm originally going to be, or low and treated like shit on this other place with the possibility of being at least a little bit higher.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's at least a little bit. Maybe not.
Yeah.
We're not Elon Musk, but
yeah.
So, like,
or at
it
least
mattered less what
more
was
importantly
true
for
as,
them, maybe like, my kids have the possibility of.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe not for me, but maybe for my children.
Yeah, at least there's a possibility that it's better.
Yeah.
Over there.
Because we had this idea of we don't have a king. Sure, it will always be a white man, but at least it won't be a king. Yeah.
Well, that will just eventually make it so that, like, it's an oligarchy, so we have many kings, several kings.
We have several kings. They're called Disney and Walmart and Apple and anyway.
Right.
What did Trump give ABC/Disney? Disney called him an adjudicated rapist, or he was liable for rape as decided by civil court, and that's true. And he's like sued him for slander. And so instead of going to court, which would have been an easy win, they instead decided to donate $15 million to his presidential library, which I'm sure is just a bunch of coloring books. That's an easy joke.
I'm sure it's a bunch of money he'll be used to pay the people that his legal fees and stuff from the elections that he lost.
So what did he give them?
Not elections.
That was good payment. Because they would have spent less in court making him look like a fool.
They don't want the potential backlash of the U.S. government taking away their license, because the problem is that we have a Supreme Court that essentially says whatever the president says goes.
That's what I assumed.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Morning Joe all of a sudden did an about face. That's why everyone is comparing. That's why. That's why Mark Zuckerberg. That's why all these people are kissing the ring.
That's just because he represents the lizard people, and they're on board.
Sure, but that's the deal. Is that it's I'm not going to be an extremist and call him Hitler, but he's doing a lot of Hitlerish type moves, and we're all playing by that playbook so far.
He's the warm-up comic for Hitler.
Yeah, which I don't even want that. Like, no one should want even that. But
my mom, my mom watched his rally in Madison Square, and she was like, I didn't see anything that was racist. I was like, that's really sad.
Does your mom watch any news other than Fox?
No.
Well, there you go then. That tells you everything, doesn't it?
They have figured out how to brainwash people for money. Basically. Fox is.
Well, yeah, because they're not a news organization. Not legitimately, no.
No, they're an entertainment.
They
make you feel good about being you channel.
Yeah, and it's only gotten worse with like ONN and that type of thing. But that
AT&T owns OAN. Did you know that?
Yeah.
They're like, we need a conservative channel. Where's the opening in the market? Batshit crazy? Sure, we're there. Fascists
listen to advertisements too.
Yeah, but I guess like to give us a tiny glimmer of hope for like the future, like generations.
Come from a weird place.
Sure. So my daughter, who is a teenager, I don't think I ever mentioned or talked about Ben Shapiro with her at all, but like
Good
I
man.
think like
Not talking about
she
him.
brought him up or something. Like I don't remember what she was talking about. I'm like, how do you know who Ben Shapiro is? And I loved her response, like, because he keeps going viral for being stupid. I'm like,
Yeah. Well, here's the deal: is I, for the sake of everything, this is not a endorsement of any action that has occurred. This is just an analysis of certain actions and an opinion based on said analysis. Again, this is not an endorsement. This is not an endorsement. Not an endorsement. When Brian Thompson got murdered,
Yep.
It appears to have been to have had bipartisan support, mostly because even when Ben Shapiro said what happened was wrong or whatever,
Yep.
his own followers were like, nah, bro, fuck them, because it's the one. There are now two things that the right and the left can unite, that can bind them together, which is the terrible healthcare system and health insurance in general, and right to repair laws. And that's all that we need. Right to repair. Right to repair. You know how if you break something, if you break your iPhone or want to replace the battery of your iPhone, you need to take it to an Apple Genius Bar and or a accredited Apple person to have it repaired. Why can't you repair it yourself? Why can't you put in your own battery?
Ah.
Yep.
Gotcha. Yep. There you go.
Why if you drive a Tesla, you can only go to a Tesla dealership and you can't have a local mechanic work on it?
Yeah.
Yep. Nothing brings people.
Why do farmers who have why are farmers trying to pay top dollar for John Deere tractors from the 1980s that they can repair on the cheap themselves if it breaks down, as opposed to a computerized modern tractor that they would have to schlep all the way over to John Deere and pay top dollar for them to repair, which, by the way, John Deere makes more money off the repairs of said machines rather than the sale of those machines.
Well, there's a lot to go wrong on it. And maybe you don't make it as well as you could, so that...
Yep.
Nothing brings people together better than treating them like shit.
Yep.
So.
Well,
we can all agree on who the man is.
I keep forgetting it again. This is a very roundabout version of that old shitting pants saying, but
Yeah.
I keep forgetting about. I'm going to look it up because I know I'm going to misquote it.
All right. We're all about accuracy on this show.
I care. Well, I care.
I appreciate that.
There you go.
Viewers.
Lyndon Johnson, who, by the way, racist, but still, even he was for civil rights because he said, if you convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him something to look. God damn it, Goodreads. Stop with the pop-ups.
Have you bought this?
Give him somebody to look down on. He'll empty his pockets for you.
Yep.
Essentially saying racism's a grift. And it is.
Pretty much.
Yeah. The people at the top may be racist, they may not be, but they learned how to monetize it.
Well, they learn how to monetize it, but it's more along the lines of, again, it's like convince, like, I don't know, if you're supposed to be in a better station of life based on your race and all that type of thing, and all of a sudden you see yourself matched up with someone who's not, and you've been taught your entire life that that's not supposed to be the case, or you've been slowly indoctrinated through subliminal messaging of like, I only see white dudes as the heroes and everything, or as the main character and everything, and all of that, and all of a sudden you're at even par with a person that doesn't look like you.
Yeah.
You think that there's something wrong with you. And there's bootstraps that have to be pulled up.
Right. Which,
as opposed to a systematic issue that affects everybody in general.
You tell people below you they're not pulling on your bootstraps hard enough.
Yeah. Well, because you have that, because if you have that personal responsibility, in quotes, mentality, you see social services and all that type of stuff, as benefits towards persons of color, because you're trained to think that way, because of course they're going to be lower than you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's a cycling type thing, in the sense of, well, they're lower than, it's either one way or the other. They're lower than us because, well, white people are better, or they're lower than us because of course they're disadvantaged. They're that color.
We should take care of them like they're children.
Yep. And if something happens to me and all that, I have that's on me. That's my fault. And even though this thing could benefit me too, it's up to me to figure that out. And if these poor black people match up to what I am currently, that's not fair, because they're not working hard enough. Mm-hmm. And it's backwards logic, as you can tell.
I think every lower conflict is probably a proxy war for the elite.
Yeah,
like the racism thing is something that's just being leveraged, and like whatever side the people with money and power are on, they're just leveraging a lower issue for their benefit. Like
you're correct to a point, because and to a certain extent, yes, I would say it's classism then racism in terms of that, but racism's pretty close, because
our country's built on it a little.
Well, yes, because it is built on it, and because assholes that are persons of color that are also rich, whenever they do fuck around, they find out they're not as protected as their white counterparts. If you look at Bill Cosby, he should have been Harvey Weinstein. And by that, I mean, he almost bought CBS. I don't know if you knew this.
Who, Cosby?
So, no.
Cosby. He was rich enough, and CBS was in the toilet to the point at which he was going to buy it, and he could buy it. White man said no.
Wait, how does white man say no? Like
because there's so many other people band together to not let him buy it.
But he wasn't old money. That could have been part of the thing too, with the classism.
That's part of it as well. But you also take a look at R. Kelly and P. Diddy currently and all that. They've done the similar crimes as, let's say, I'm trying to think like Harvey Weinstein, right? Fucking Donald Trump and all that. They are pretty much as rich as those people. And R. Kelly, you haven't heard from his ass ever again. And P. Diddy is likely going to be in jail for the rest of his life, or not going to be back in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Harvey Weinstein got out of jail.
Yeah, he even kind of has a career.
Yeah.
He's a silent partner on all kinds of shit, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's the deal, is that and Kevin Spacey as well has had similar
Oh my goodness.
accusations again. But here's the thing: he ain't in prison. Is he going to make anything ever again? Probably not.
But he's going to live comfortably.
But he ain't starving. He ain't in prison.
Yeah.
Or if they get too powerful, they fucking kill you, or at least try.
There's that too.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get yourself so valuable to the other side that like they'll miss you if they do. That's how you stay alive.
Yeah, but the problem is that there's so much ingrained, and it's, again, I'm not an authority on this for obvious reasons, but there's so much ingrained racism in this country that the little minuscule handful of wealthy persons of color is already dwarfed by white old money. And as soon as that, and if that cog in that machine is compromised, like, we got another white guy that can fill in that slot. We can fill in that need. Yeah,
I saw Ann Coulter talking to Vivek Ramaswamy, and I did say Smarmy. I know that's not his name, but I like it.
Yeah, I like it too.
She was like, I wouldn't have voted for you because you're not white. And he had just had to eat it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
he eats that a lot.
He knows how things are, but but part of his revenge is taking as much of their money as he can. Like, I can kind of respect that a bit. Also, super dick.
Well, that's the thing, is that he is, yes, he is taking white people money, but he's not lifting up other ships as well. He's trying to be with them.
But as a black man said one time in our small group, he's like, sure, slavery was ended for like less than magnanimous reasons, and sure, civil rights was granted as a political move, but he's like, I kind of don't care. He's like, it happened. I'm glad it did. It kind of doesn't matter why it happened.
It doesn't. The end result is good, but we still have like 13th Amendment and that type of thing, so slavery still technically exists.
Sure, in prison, yeah.
Yeah.
Not a good deal at all. Super slavery.
Yeah. So I mean, so I totally get his point. It's like yeah, it still happened, but it's like, but it would be better if it happened for good reasons, though, right?
Sure, but he's like, I'll take what we got.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, So I'm certainly not telling him. Yeah. So I'm certainly not telling him don't like it, but you still got to recognize we can do better, or for better.
Yeah. No. Yeah. The problem is that can only last. I mean, Joe Biden was just a reprieve from Donald Trump. We didn't want him as a president. I don't think no one did. But the thing of it is that it was like, well, okay, like we won by, it's like winning. We'll take any inch we can get. So that's sort of
it may have been better,
a slight equivalent to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It may have been. Think about this. It may have been better if Trump won a second term and Biden was never elected, because he was just starting to get his shit together and organized in his first term. And so during the next 4 years, the impact that they could have made would be smaller than the impact that's going to happen now. Because they had 4 years to circle their wagons and come up with a plan.
We'll never know for sure. But at the same token, a lot of our current, I know we're not feeling it as the people on the ground, but a lot of the stuff I have to give Biden a little bit of credit for, of terms of course correction, because it would have been much worse. Keep in mind, there's little doubt in my mind that we're better. We're COVID-wise, we're much better than we should be because he reversed a lot of things that Trump
That's a good
kickstarted.
point.
Right. Yeah, even like with inflation, because like everyone knows talks about like how Biden's responsible for so much inflation. Okay, inflation was a global issue.
Yeah,
Yes,
and Biden is
it's-
responsible for shrinking
And
it.
Yeah.
and also if you look at like all the countries like in the US, like we've handled inflation much like it's gone down faster than pretty much anywhere else in the past 4 years. So for whatever that's worth. So sorry, I'm just trying to find like
And now Trump is inheriting that, and all the initial benefits he'll take credit for until the tariffs bite him in the ass.
Well,
Right.
there's going to be a big recession around the end of 25, beginning of 26. It's the recession we didn't really get from COVID.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. And that's all on Trump's plate at that point. He's going to try to make it Biden's problem, but like
He'll have no scapegoats except for the people that he's a part of. But the problem is that he has Elon Musk in his ear.
yeah,
He has,
yeah.
and he's taking loyalists over people that actually know what the fuck they're doing and
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah. So basically at this point I'm trying to find like what's something positive we can like say like so I can say I need to go to bed.
There is hope. This is what happens when an empire is falling apart.
Mhm.
So this is the empire striking back. All right, it's the most exciting of the movies of the first three, in my opinion. My personal appeal. And-
Yeah.
But it gets better.
It'll take 4 years until the actual comeback happens.
Yeah.
And then we got,
Like,
then we
it
got
gets
Ewoks.
better, but it does get much worse before it does.
And then we got
I-
Ewoks to look forward to.
We got Ewoks before too. I will say my positive parting words will not sound positive, but they actually are, and so that's everything ends.
Yeah.
There you go.
Good, bad, indifferent. Everything ends. So
Or this too shall pass, as it were. Yeah.
That's a babushka sentiment from Ukraine also.
everything
Like-
ends.
This can't last forever. When Russia first invaded, and it was like pretty bad and up in the air. And
That's not an excuse to be apathetic, mind you, but that's more
Right.
along the lines of a hope.
right.
So-
It was a resist.
like-
It's kind of a resistance sentiment too, because she was like, you're gonna stay here, and she's like, yeah, can't last forever, and
Yeah. I was gonna say like it won't last forever and I'll fucking make sure of it. So
Right. Yeah. And
There
the thing that was effective until again the DNC campaign manager who lost in the Hillary campaign and lost in other campaigns, and I don't know why the fuck they listened to him. The effective message at the time is these people are weird. So stop it. Let's not normalize this. This is not normal.
yeah,
Keep that in mind. If something seems smelly, don't comply.
there you go.
that's the best resistance, non-compliance.
Yeah. Don't pre-comply. Don't
Yeah.
fly to Mar-a-Lago and
Like, make
be
me.
like don't fly to Mar-a-Lago and be like, "Oh, here's $15 million. Sorry, Mr. Trump, that we said the thing that was factual aloud." So,
Yeah.
Publicize some
Anyway.
shit too. Be like, he's putting pressure on us. Like, do you
Yeah.
realize how much more support you'd get from like more regular people? Like they're like, yeah, I don't even like that movie. I'll go see it. Like,
well, the problem is that they're being
Bullshit.
bankrolled because the oligarchy of everything. ABC is owned by one person, and that one person doesn't wants to be on Trump's good side. So
who's
Sure,
the one person?
yeah,
Are you
all the way.
talking Disney, or is there a person?
yes, Disney, whomever.
Okay, yeah,
That's the problem with the corporate oligarchy that we're in is the fact that they supported that president to begin with. That's the same reason why the LA Times is like, well, we're going to put in this weird AI that judges bias in our stories now that none of our reporters asked for. and the public doesn't want.
What can go wrong? Fuck.
Keep an eye out for my AI script on some more news. But here's the thing:
good. That'll be good.
Everything ends, but it'll. But next week, regardless of what you believe, it is a time of year in which we can have personal reflection on our loved ones and on our friends, and if we are in a position to give gifts, whether they are tangible or not, we want to experience and share that love with them. And I want to say to the two of you, Merry Christmas, and I love you.
All right. Merry Christmas. Love you too, buddy. Yeah.
Same. Merry Christmas. Love you too.
Yeah. Thanks for hopping in. So I guess, do you need to go, or I'm about to wrap up, but
I am going to go now. This is your show. I'm going to let you have the final word. Take care. Love you, bud. Right. Love you guys.
All right. Bye. See you around, buddy. Yeah. So as Barnes says, Merry Christmas and all the other holidays, whatever you may be celebrating, or all the things. So I guess as far as like the theme of the show tonight, to wrap up, any closing thoughts specifically on the whole, like, truth? Does it matter? Is it what we're after? I guess my parting thing is still just like, go after truth. I mean, as close as you can. I don't see any negative side effects on building your life on truth. Like, again, just to make this more about myself real quick, because this is one of the things I love about, like, having gone through cancer, is like all the different analogies and metaphors and things I can draw from it.
My favorite part about cancer was
this, and again, it I think it just so well illustrates why I prefer knowing the truth, or at least like the best we can come to it anyways. Like, was it uplifting? Did it give me peace? Did it make me feel better? Did it give me all the warm fuzzies to find out I had cancer? Like, fuck no. But it was the truth. And that's what ended up being like what led to my benefit and that's ultimately what gave me hope, is like, really, okay, this is what's happening. Now I know what I need to do.
I think it's wrong to say truth will set you free. I think it's the pursuit of truth that will set you free. Because like, I think truth matters. I also think we're not going to know for sure what that is. We can get forever closer to it, but unless we evolve to the point of being like a universal being, like, we're not going to really grasp the truth, because there's just more than what we can process or filter. So I think it's the pursuit of truth, and just always assuming that there's more truth to know. Like, you've never arrived. If you think you've arrived, you've made a mistake.
Exactly. Yeah, so I guess one more quote that I forgot to mention earlier, because I mentioned, the Matt Dillahunty and the Sam Harris, but there's another quote from Aaron Ra that I really like on the subject. He says, "The truth may not set you free. It might even piss you off, but it's still better than believing a lie." So
it might even be like soul crushing at first. But that doesn't mean it's bad. Feels bad doesn't mean bad.
Exactly. As bad as it was to find out I had cancer, finding out I had stage 4 cancer that was like literally everywhere in my torso and in my heart and lungs and leg and everything. Like, that was devastating, but I'm glad I knew. And I'm specifically glad my doctors knew. So I guess that wraps it up for this evening. Thanks for our buddy Eric Barnes for joining us again. May have to have him on as like an actual guest again sometime. We did do that before. That was fun. But having him hop on at the end, like he has a couple times recently, that's been fun too. But yeah, next week, plan is it'll just be me, probably just watching some apologist videos on YouTube and reacting to those. New Year's Day, Matt, like I won't be here, but Matt may or may not be doing a thing. But if not, we'll see you all again. Probably was that January 8th, I guess.
I don't.
Yeah, but also speaking of guests, hoping to have some more next year. Both like we definitely want to have like some former guests come on, like Barnes and several others. Also, some plans for some other guests that we have not had yet. I don't want to say names or announce anything yet, mostly because I haven't actually asked them yet. But
Oh, they'll do it.
yeah, I'm sure they will. But I don't want to assume. But anyway.
I imagine
Yeah.
anyway.
But yeah, for those of you who, I mean, I'm sure Matt, you and me will talk more before then. But for anyone else, if you're not going to be here next week and we don't talk to you before then, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever holidays you're celebrating around this time of year. We hope it's good. I hope you have
Merry
a good time.
Quasma Solstice.
Yeah. Whatever a happy holiday looks like for you, or as I heard, it's like or a peaceful holiday. Because I know, like sometimes, like the holidays we know aren't necessarily happy for everyone, but we hope at least you can like find some peace and rest. And
peace in the midst of the ritual, whatever yours is.
Exactly. All right. Well, with that, Matt, take us out.
May your things and stuff be forever with your people.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Remember, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, or if you hate our show, tell your enemies. I don't care. All right. All right. See ya.